on air and live.
Hello, everyone. You know, I thought it was about time I blew up the old Nosferatu gag. Well, it's just me today. Shelley is again on the injured list. Can't make the show tonight, so we're very sad about that. But she's probably tuning in even as we speak. But nevertheless, we're going to have a moderately big show today, whether or not Shelley joins us or not. Voice is going. Gabe Eltaeb is supposed to be joining me around 5:30, but he never got back to me, so I don't even know if that's happening. So it's just going to be wild and crazy. Luckily, I have a bunch of stuff stacked up here, tons of stuff to go over, tons of stuff to talk about, and a delicious LaCroix, or is it LaCroix, or whatever it is. Actually, it's not delicious. This is guava, and it's not really doing it for me, but hey, it's water, so I'm drinking it. So it's November 28th. We're not even into December yet, but it feels like the start of the Christmas season, right? We're past Thanksgiving. We're ready to rock and roll. So everything is now focused on Christmas, even though we're not even out of November yet. But let's see who's here. Leg Kick was the first one in the door. I think that's awesome. And let me be the first to let you know that by being first in the chat, you get absolutely nothing. But thank you for joining us. Jeff Stout is here. He's sending his salutations to both me and Shelley Showtime. And Shelley, of course, is not with me. I mean, she's across the hall. Excuse me, boy, that carbonated water. Darth Josh is here. Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright. Wait. Every single time I do that. Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven is with us. Julie Pascal is here. She hit the like button before the stream even starts because she has confidence in me, and I appreciate that because I always bring the quality, even if it's not great quality. There is some level of quality, which reminds me, I'm glad she brought that up because I keep forgetting to do my public service announcements. Let's do that and get it out of the way first. That's right. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'll try and give you a good reason tonight to subscribe if you haven't. But even if you don't think it's that good of a reason, go ahead and subscribe anyway because it's free. Why not? Let's do it. It'll be fun. Randy Howell's here. He says, Past Master Dan is here. Excuse me. Randy Howell is here. He says he's here for the cheer. Everything is covered in snow outside, which is oddly appropriate. Why don't I actually bring that up? Everything is covered in snow outside, which is oddly appropriate as Aaron's background is a Christmas countdown. Well, there you go. When you're in Canada, it's probably snows all the time year round, right? Let's see. Sequential Treasures is here. Not Sequential Tweasures, but Sequential Treasures. I actually said that right. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he'll show up. I don't know. He said, hey, we should do a show together, kind of, talk about our process for Wraith of God and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Come on Sunday. He goes, yeah, I'll do that. And then I sent him a notice. I sent him a link, never heard back. So I don't know. Maybe he'll show up. We'll see. Let's see. Oh, we're talking about the future of whether or not this show is actually be good. I hope I haven't ruined it already. JP Roke is here. Daryl Wayne is here. In Inkfinity Comics, get it? They're here. Hey, people. Hello, Aaron and Shelley. Just saying hello. I'm here. It's bedtime for me. Have a great show. 1 a.m. Wow. Where would that put you at 1 a.m.? You're like in Australia or someplace over in Europe? I don't know. No, let's see. If it was Australia, it'd be tomorrow already. So if it's 1 a.m., it's got to be like Europe someplace, right? It's got to be. Because it'd be about 9 hours difference, right? So, well, 6 hours would be 11. Yeah. I bet he's in Europe someplace, like in England or France, perhaps. Exciting. Okay, who me is here? You know, Randy's bringing up, I think, an important point. Wraith of God is just $10 away from 111K. Just one backer away. How about that? Let's get there tonight. I think we should. Paul Brillhart. That's one of those words. Is kind of the last names. It's Brillhart. He's an engineer. I just thought I'd point that out. My son's an engineer too. You know. Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate that. Yeah, she's having a little bit of headache issues again tonight. We're gonna have to start doing this show like at the beginning of the week. I mean, technically this is the beginning of the week, but it's the weekend, so it's like at the end of last week. So, you know, maybe if we did at the beginning, you know, when she always seems to be recouping on the weekend from a rough week. So maybe we have to change our start time or something. Let's see here. Daryl Wayne says, one monkey don't stop no show, but two. Yeah, I know, but I'm still the main monkey. This is still my show, darn it, and I'm going to provide entertainment at a very minuscule level that you all have grown accustomed to. Peter Orchard Studios is here. Geek Avengers here. Crag the Dwarf. I love that. Crag the Dwarf. It's awesome. Hope it's not all carbonated, or else you'll hope it's not carbonated, or else you will be burping. Well, it is carbonated, and I am. So, look at this. L.E. Munoz says, Christmas season always reminds me of my favorite time at Marvel Comics when Joe Quesada was being innovative and even releasing Marvel Christmas music via his band. The good old days, huh? Geek Avenger watched White Christmas last night with Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye and oh my gosh, Rosemary Clooney, and then the other the dancer. I can't think of her name. It'll come to me though. Don't tell anyone I'm here. Oops, sorry, too late. That's right. Scott's like, well, no one showed up, so good thing you can draw, because I may have to resort to actually that old school technique of drawing. Rodney Ulabari says hello and happy Thanksgiving. Late, of course, but the sentiment is thank you very much. I appreciate it. Randy Howell saying it would be Britain. So there you go. Demonized. Speaking of Christmas, that seems oddly inappropriate. But Aaron, speaking of Christmas, what is your favorite version of A Christmas Carol? Honestly, the Chuck Jones animated version, if you haven't seen it, it's killer. It's only about 30 minutes long, but it's awesome. So Chuck Jones did some really interesting stuff in the 60s. So that's right. You know, Geek Avenger was pumping this on. Oops, sorry. Love it when you pros draw a virtual CG bullpen. You're absolutely right. That is kind of, I think, a kind of a good way of looking at it. Because I always thought, you know, if I start drawing, are people going to be like, but, you know, what the heck, if Walter Simonson did a live stream was drawing, I'd watch it. You know, I watched Adam Hughes do a live stream drawing. So, but I'm an artist, so I don't know. You know, Scrooge is the best version. I'm not sure if I agree with that. Mike Miller saying he's here, so I may start over. Well, thankfully, Mike, you haven't missed anything. Ooh, I've not seen that in ages. That was a good one. That's right. Without Shelley, the show can stay family friendly. That's right. There'll be no swearing on this show. That's a really good one too. The Muppets Christmas Carol is excellent. I have to admit. So gotta keep that throat lubricated there. It was a shameless self plug. He says, "It's 1 a.m. I thought you were going to bed." Last week I had Shelley on the show. Oh, that's who you. Oh, I see your little avatar there, or whatever it's called. I recognize you now. Yeah. Talked about the abuse they got. Check it out, and many other CG interviews. That's right. That was a nice little interview you did with Shelley. Shelley Showtime, or Shelley Celebrity, whatever you want to call her. Michael Caine singing was well worth it. Yeah. There he is. Now he's going to bed. He says, okay. Good night. Thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's pretty good. But I still dig that. I still dig the Chuck Jones animated version a lot. Don't get me started on this. Do not get me started on that. So let's moving right along here. Let's see what do I have in store for you guys. Well, um, we're going to start off with. Actually, I'll get that off there first. We're going to start off with this, which is something I introduced 2 weeks ago. We didn't do it last week because we didn't have time, but I'm doing it this week. That's right. What's it worth? I find this fascinating. You guys may not, but I have control of your screen, so you have to put up with it for the time being. All right. So here's the thing. We go back to 1976. We check out the price guide. My first price guide I bought in 1976 when I was 12 years old. And let's find out what this stuff is worth and what's it going for today. Now, if you were a savvy collector back in 1976 and you said, you know what, I got to get a copy of Spider-Man #1 and I want to get it in near mint because I'm thinking about the future. I want to know that I'm getting a super great investment. So I went out and I found a near mint copy. I didn't really, but if I had found a near mint copy of Spider-Man #1, I would have paid for it $160. $160 in 1976. To put that in perspective, it's now fair market value on that book in 9.2, that's near mint minus, 230 grand. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if I clearly spent $160, more than that in my youth, buying new comics and old comics, building up this huge collection because like most kids, I was the type of kid, it was like, I wasn't concerned about condition. I just wanted to get as many comics as I could, as many copies, get the entire run of Spider-Man. If I had been a smart kid, I would have took all that money, saved it up, got my $160 and found someone that would have sold me this comic in near mint condition for $160. And I'd have my retirement taken care of right now. But no, I didn't do it. So let's take a look at one other one that can depress us all. Sorry, I got to push 160 buttons to make this. Okay, so we looked at Spider-Man #1. You're thinking, okay, Amazing Fantasy 15. That's the first appearance of Spider-Man, right? Way back from 1962. Now let's say in 1976. Let's just say I wanted to find a near mint copy of that and buy it. Well, according to Overstreet in 1976, you would have paid exactly the same thing, $160 for this. You know what that thing is going for now? $950,000, and it's probably more than that. A 9.2 would probably be over $1 million now. Crazy. I think if we all could go back in a time machine, there would be some pretty smart purchases being made that I regret not making now. But I could have got a Spider-Man #1 in fine condition way back in 92 for $2,500. It would have taken just about everything I had to do it. And I had just gotten married or was just getting married. I can't remember if Shelley and I were married or engaged, but it was right, either early marriage or late engagement. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. I said, that's not the responsible thing to do. Well, of course, I think a fine copy of Spider-Man #1 is probably in that $20,000 neighborhood right now. So it probably would have been a smart purchase for me even then, and I didn't do it. But granted, $2,500 to a newlywed, that was a ton of money. So, let's see what everybody's saying here. I was 6 years old back then, didn't have $160 now. Aaron's been testing off the old 45s, that's for sure. Old man said he's going to bet it's gone up, and you're correct, he did. Geek Avenger, 60 grand for. Oh, you were guessing. You were guessing it was 60 grand. No, it's way more than that. Stuff's gone through the roof. All this COVID money the last couple of years has really fueled the collecting fires, but they're starting to level back down a little bit. Although I don't think the key issues like those are going to drop because they're not necessarily comic collectors that are buying them. So, okay. What does he say? Past Master Dan says, I remember that Mark Hamill Storyteller series where he was told to collect. But did he? Yeah, I don't think it'll crash that hard. It may readjust a little bit, but the key issues tend to stay up. Like I said, there's other people investing in comics right now that are not just comic fans and collectors, but they're people that are just collecting in memorabilia and pop culture and just investments. And those are people that, coming out of corporate America with a lot of bucks. So All Gold Productions says, I could have bought a near mint copy of Daredevil 1 for $100 back in the day. I hated the cover. It was like 12. Oh, man. Well, we'll see. We shall see. Demon Eyes he doesn't have faith in the market, thinks it's going to come crashing down. We shall see. That's for sure. Victor Thomas has jumped in. Jimmy Owens is in here. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it. Excuse me, burped again because of all that carbonation. That's good stuff. All right, let's take a moment now and take a look at the rights and image of the day, shall we? Watch your monitors. That piece right there came out of the Apparitions portfolio from 1978. Sal Q Productions actually printed it. It was 4-color plates, and all of them were really nice. But if you got this, they came out as a regular edition where you just got the 4-color plates. I think it was like $15. And you could get the limited edition one, which was signed and numbered. I believe was limited to 1,000 copies. So it was signed and numbered by Wrightson. The actual envelope was, which is a really killer envelope. It has this kind of zombie creature, skeleton creature, walking through these swamp waters and some guys back on the bank of this kind of, wooded area is kind of looking in shock, and underneath them it's spelled Apparitions and sort of wrapped around like this. But anyway, if you got the limited edition one, you got that extra black and white plate of kind of a Conan character there that Wrightson did. So that only came with the limited edition one, which of course I have. There's a nice combination of brushwork and then pen and ink, of course, for all that cross hatching in the background. So that's really, anyway, that's our Wrightson piece for the day. And there's plenty more where that came from. So we like to do that once a week just to kind of keep you guys up. If you're not up to speed on your Wrightson, you should be. Julie Pascal says, I figured out which issues of Spider-Man I taped together into a book when I was a teen, only $15 a piece if I wanted to replace them. Those are the things we did as kids, I tell you. Aaron should get some of his comics signed and graded, sell them on eBay. There is a huge market that only buys graded comics. I know, I'm part of it. I only buy expensive. I only buy graded comics when they're expensive comics, okay? Because I don't want to get into a controversy about what condition a book is in when I'm investing, several $100+ into something. So I didn't used to buy. Was very resentful of. I thought graded comics were kind of a scam, but now they're the one thing that you can. If you get a book and you want to resell it or you want to trade it, if it's graded, you don't have to argue about the condition, right? Everybody says, okay, well, it's a 9.0 or it's a 9.2 or it's a 9.4. That's what it is. And so it's easier to make a deal as opposed to trying to sell an ungraded book. And then you can sit there and argue about, oh, that little crease right there, that's how, and they can never agree on a condition. So anyway, so I do buy graded books. I don't send my books in to get graded because they never come back the way I want them to. So I get pissed and then I say, I'm not doing it anymore. So anyway, so I have a large collection of ungraded books. Most of my collection is ungraded, but I do have 30 some graded books. So there you go. There's that. I've done a little bit of getting caught up in nostalgia here as Christmas time's coming. And so not only do I have a precious moment segment for today, but I have another thing that really sort of harkens back to the purity of the essence of Christmas, Americana Christmas, like it used to be back in the day. And we'll get to that in just a moment. I'm just kind of previewing a little bit here, but I want to show you guys this. This is the Esther card that everybody who backs Wraith of God will be getting. Okay, I sent these to the printer. It says Esther, Wraith of God, and on the back there's like information about Esther on there. How about that? Esther Mitchell. You learned her last name. And look, there's my little Empire Comics logo down on the bottom. Oops. Here. There it is. So anyway, and what I did was, I love matte finish. I can't stand glossy. I don't know why. So I got these. These are matte finish on them. So they don't really reflect all that much, but they have a nice little coating on them. That's very nice. So these came in. And like I said, everybody that backs Wraith of God gets one of these, right? Along with the sticker set, the limited edition print, and some other goodies that are incorporated into the book itself. I also have the Wraith of God card that was put out just for the people that backed that signed up before the campaign went live. But I do have some extras of those, and I will be putting those up on the Wraith of God page for you guys to order if you didn't get one and you have to have one. I haven't got those back from the printers yet, so I'm not going to put them up until I actually have them in my hands and make sure that everything's cool. So anyway, man, my voice is going quick. So I did forget this, because we should have done this right at the beginning of the show, because there's really, if I can find my my thing here. Maybe I can't. Oh, there it is. I should do this at the beginning of every show, but I got carried away. I got, Anyway, let's do this now.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Now, this show is about snacking, if it's about anything, right? And I want you guys to see. Now, this is not a new snack. But these cherries, these Montgomery cherries dipped in chocolate. Holy crap! These are so good. And they're still on sale when I go to the grocery store. And if I see them, 2 for $1, or they're not 2 for $1, but I tell myself they're 2 for $1. That allows me to get 2 packages. But they're on sale, and I'm grabbing them because they are awesome. So they're not. Actually, you know what? These are better than Raisinets, which is hard for me to say that and admit it, but these are fabulous. Oh, it's Christmas heaven. Oops, sorry. Lewis Bryce Raven is obviously still recovering from Thanksgiving, and I get it. I understand. I put on 3 pounds, if you can believe that. 3 freaking pounds in one day of massive overeating. But the pie is gone. We still have turkey left over, but most of the carbohydrate dishes, like the mashed potatoes and the stuffing, green bean casserole, that stuff is all gone. So we just have turkey, which means I'm going to make one gigantic turkey pot pie, probably. But anyway. The paper you print on becomes part of the design. I prefer matte too. Look at that. Now see, Telepathic Bunny, he likes the shiny too much. I don't know. I've never been, I'm not a big airbrush fan. I don't even think when in the 70s I was an airbrush fan, when they're like airbrushing like unicorns and stuff on the side of vans. I just never really liked that airbrushy look. And I really don't like it now because it's so dated. But the glossy, I much prefer that matte finish. I like the way it feels, and I like the fact that it's not highly reflective. And Probably doesn't show fingerprints is much either, the matte finish. Aaron's delusional shopping savings. You must be talking about what I think I could have got a Spider-Man #1 in 1976 for. Hey, all I'm saying is that's what the guide says, man. That's all I'm saying. Depends on location, of course, but mid-grades are fetching several $100. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly which book he's talking about, but couldn't be Spider-Man #1. I can tell you that because it's fetching a lot more than a couple $100. Oh, 3 pounds, not of hair, obviously, Aaron Lepresti. Oh, really? This is probably about 3 pounds worth of weight. Actually, that cannonball probably weighs more than 3 pounds. Green bean casserole has carbs. Yeah, you got the deep fried onions in there. I assume that deep fried crispy goodness is a carb that turns into sugar in your system. Shadowhawk Backs is in the house. Thank you for joining us. I didn't hear Jimmy Owens. My dad was talking at the time Aaron was explaining. I don't even know what you guys are talking about, which is probably good for me. Why would my Golden Age DC stuff be taking a hit? Never seen it drop like this past week. Any idea why? Well, you guys want to stay tuned because I will be getting Richard Evans, the owner of Bedrock City Comics, on the show here very soon, maybe as soon as next week. And we're going to talk about collecting. We're going to talk about the market. He's very knowledgeable. He has an amazing collection. I think what you're seeing right now is some prices are settling in. Okay. And there was a big, and we can discuss why we think that was in the collector's market, why all these prices went through the roof the last 2 years. I think it was a lot of people early on had stimulus money, people weren't going to shows because there wasn't any shows because of all the lockdowns and crap. And so you had people were saving this money that they would normally spend at conventions, and there wasn't any conventions to go to. So that money got fueled into online auctions and different things like that. And I think it really sent books skyrocketing. I was also told that there was a lot of money coming in from corporate America that were using it not to launder money, but to hide money, basically hide money from getting taxed into these collectibles, from people that wouldn't normally be buyers. And so, I talked to a dealer who told me this, and, he said a lot of that was fueling some of these higher prices. So eventually what happens is people's attention goes someplace else or whatever, and you start to see an adjustment. Now, Golden Age books, again, what you saw was, what they say, rising tide floats all boats, right? So you've got all these people jumping in and you've got prices going up on everything. But only the stuff that people are really, really super interested in, key books, first appearances, origins, whatever, tend to stay up, and everything else tends to trickle back down because people start to realize there's really no interest in, Daredevil 28, right? So the same thing, depending on what DC Golden Age books you have. And I'm not a big fan of DC Golden Age stuff. I much prefer the Timely or the / Marvel Golden Age and some of the oddball Golden Age stuff. But here's what you got to remember. Vince from Metropolis Comics told me one time, I said, what's a good investment? And he said, Golden Age. Just buy Golden Age. Just buy Golden Age. And the reality of it is those books are scarce. There are just not that many copies around, and regardless of what it is. So those are always good investment books. So even though they may ebb and flow a little bit, the market value is so hard to determine on those because there's so few sales regularly on those type of books that, you hang on to them and they're always going to have some solid value for you. So there you go. I watched Michael Jackson spend 500,000 just walking into a store. Yeah, it's pocket change, right? Can you imagine opening your wallet? I got 500 grand burning a hole in my pocket. What do I want to buy? Um, yeah, I think that's true. I think scarcity absolutely does drive value, but it's not just scarcity, it's demand, right? I mean, you take a look at book. I didn't mean to go off on this collecting tangent, but here we are. Werewolf by Night, number 32, first appearance of Moon Knight, right? That book, you can find that book anywhere in high grade anytime you want it, but everybody wants it. So it's still driving the prices of that book through the roof and have been for years. It's a very strange book in that regard because it's like 1975, 76. So it's not, I mean, it's old, but it's not that hard to find in high grade. It's the kind of same thing with Hulk 181, First Prince of Wolverine. It's not a scarce book, but boy, is it in demand, and it always will be. So therefore, that's driving the price as well. So it's always that weird combination of scarcity and demand, because you can find some golden age books that nobody cares about, and they'll just sit there, right? Even though they're scarce. So you still have to have that demand to drive it. Of that. After reading Jeff Johns' JSA and loving the characters, I was so disappointed how bad the original DC JSA comics were. A lot of that stuff was garbage. I mean, you didn't buy Golden Age comics for good stories 9 times out of 10. I mean, there was some interesting ones in there here and there, but I think, I mean, you don't go back and buy them for stories. At the time, they were good stories, and they fit the need, which was to entertain young kids during the war, and then post war, of course. But I think, EC Comics really raised the level of stories being told in comics. And then, of course, the Silver Age with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, they's really changed people's perception of what a comic book should be, and how it should be interesting to read, and it should be better, well thought out, and all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of grew from there. So yeah, going back and reading like old Golden Age books, or even really old Silver Age books, might find them a little bit disappointing compared to the quality of writing that you might be getting, here in the past 30 or 40 years, even 50 years, really. Mythic Rare says, friend of mine showed me a good video on YouTube. It talked about the collector's market on comics, etc. The collector's market, it's been taken over by people with money that want to control the market. Well, I don't think that's untrue. What am I trying to say? That's a double negative? No, I think there is some truth to that. So, I heard Bill Gates walked in and bought everything Superman and Golden Age collectibles once. But see, that's what happens. You get somebody with serious money, and they get a wild hair about, you know what? I remember Superman when I was a kid. I want to get all the Superman books. They can do it, and they can pay whatever they want for them, and then just drive the price through the roof, right? So, those are all things that happen. And there's a lot of movie money in comics too, because a lot of guys that are producing films today were big comic book fans growing up, and now they have tons of money. So, Werewolf by Night 32 is always overpriced. At the prospect of Moon Knight, it is literally the only issue I'm missing from my Werewolf by Night collection, but now is not the time to buy. It's too high. Dude, it's always going to be too high. That book is not coming down, unfortunately. I don't know why, but it isn't. It's one of those things. And I think also the First Prince of Warlock as Warlock, which is Thor 165, is going to be another one of those Werewolf by Night books. Even though it's much older, it's still a book that people are just fixated on Warlock, and it started way before he was ever announced in the movies. So whether he's a bust or a big success in the Marvel Universe movies, I still think that book is going to stay up there, and which kind of ticks me off, because that's the one book out of my run of Thor that I'm having it's out of my price range, or I refuse to pay that much for anyway. Well, it is out of my price range. That's absolutely true. They really did. No, 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 nope, nope, nope. Because there's no, because the paper quality, if you look at some of the Mile High comics, like some of those books from the 40s in his collection were like 9.6s, right? They are freaking unbelievable. They're like stored in perfect condition, and so if you had bought, say, you went back in a time machine, bought Captain America #1, and came back, you'd just say, hey man, it was stored in perfect condition all these years, and look at it, because there isn't any really fakes out there like that. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to tell just by the type of paper being used. So you're safe to go back in time and buy those comics without any fear of being able to resell them for big bucks. Well, condition also plays a part in that, because the Dead Man stuff, at least the first appearance of Dead Man, the rest of the Dead Man issues have stayed pretty much the same, but the first appearance of Dead Man is really blown up. But yeah, I've got all the Dead Man stuff, some in good, nicer condition, some not. I'm trying to replace all those as near mints. And the Spectre stuff, of course, with Murphy Anderson, and then there's a run of Neil Adams, like 4 or 5 issues, and there's a Wrightson issue in there too. I think number 9. We're talking about the Silver Age Spectre series. 165 and 166, Robert, are the two. I have 166 really high grade, but I don't have a 165, and it's like, to get a near mint copy of that, you're looking, boy, I bet it's $6,000 now, and there's no way I'd pay that for that book. That's some speculation. I read a thing on a market report that suggested that too, that because we're not getting new readers in to the collecting market, or just in buying new comics in general, that eventually you're going to find your collectors aging out, right? And so there's going to be less people interested in that stuff. Now, the caveat to that is that the older books, and I say older books by pre-1980, and if you're really smart, pre-1970, those books take on more of a, like if you're buying, antique furniture or something, right? I mean, they're just plain old. They're old collectibles and part of pop culture. So I don't think you necessarily have to be a comic book fan to buy those older books, because they have more value beyond just being a comic book. Their historical significance, especially books from World War II and things like that. Whereas in the article I read, this guy brought up a good point about the first appearance of Miles Morales. Is that really a smart buy? Because there's not going to be, the people that are buying comics or paying money for collectibles, or people that are over 30, basically, was the point he was making. So Miles Morales is not their Spider-Man. Peter Parker is. And when you have no new younger readers coming in, Miles Morales eventually is not going to be anybody's Spider-Man, is kind of the point he was making. So is that really going to be valuable 20 or 30 years from now? Whereas Spider-Man, Peter Parker, is always going to have value because he's such an intrinsic part of pop culture. So interesting. We shall see. There we go. Louis Brightraven dropping numbers on us. Thor 165 and 9.0 is about 2,500, but a 9.6 is about 9K. Yeah. So I'm guessing that a 9.2 is probably in that $4,000 range. It's closing next week, but will the book ever be done? That's the question. Is this actually a real book? I don't know. This is an excellent point right here. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Venom and Carnage first appearances. There are literally tens of thousands of those out there, and they're all in 9.2 or better condition. So there's no rarity or scarcity involved in these books, and they're all in great condition. So how valuable can they be over the long term, other than people just being interested in the first appearance of Venom and Carnage? But is there, how many hardcore fans are really interested in those books, and how much of that is just speculators coming in and buying those books because they're in movies and stuff, and they think they can flip them? 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we'll see. But collecting like this stuff is always a risk. Anyway, So let's take a quick look at a couple other things I've prepared. I did tell you I was getting nostalgic, and this is why. Let's take a look, first of all, at this week's precious moments.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
Jack Burton. Is that the most underrated film of all time? Or is it perhaps just straight up one of the great comedy adventure films of all time, and everybody knows it? Maybe it's not underrated at all, but it's definitely a cult film. But I don't know if it actually, how it registers beyond that. But man, that movie, I love that movie. And it's one of those movies, of course, I'm talking about Big Trouble in Little China. It's one of those movies, every time you watch it, just for me, gets funnier and funnier. It's kind of like Napoleon Dynamite. The first time I watched Napoleon Dynamite, I was like, I don't get this. And I kept watching it, and it just got funnier and funnier. And now I just think it's, outrageously funny. And I love Big Trouble in Little China. It's just so funny. And Kurt Russell is hilarious in that movie. There you go. Introduced to your 9-year-old nephew, and they loved it. Excellent. Look at that. Brohawk Williams is in the house. All right. So apparently Gabe isn't going to show up because he's like 13 minutes late. So I did prepare a couple of things that I do want to talk about, because you know what? The thing is, Gabe is a colorist, but you know who else is a colorist? Me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about coloring technique and a couple, just, I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds because it can get kind of crazy, but I want to show you a couple books that, if you're interested in this kind of thing, that you might want to take a look at. This right here, Eitan, The Elements of Color. Now, this is not reading for the faint of heart. Okay, this is like a scientific approach to color theory, but it's not particularly thick. So it is thick reading, but it is extremely good. So I would, my painting teacher many years ago recommended me to get this book. And it just explains color theory and how it works and why it works. And it changed my entire understanding of how to approach a painting or a color piece, even if you're doing it digitally or whatever. Let's get off that would be horrible. To remake a Big Trouble in Little China, that would be absolutely horrible. Now, if they did a television show, it was like The Continuing Adventures of Jack Burton, it still might be horrible without Kurt Russell, but at least you could do that without ruining the original movie. Anyway. Okay, so back to color. Now, if you want something that's a little bit lighter reading, but still very helpful and informative, this is an old book, but The World of Color and How to Use It by William F. Powell. Powell did a series of art books, probably in the 60s and 70s. So this is a good one. But I mean, I would really recommend the Eitan book. But like I said, if you want something that's more of an easy reader, this isn't too shabby. Now, if you really want to get into the weeds, but with more applicable to art and fantasy art, check out this book by James Gurney, the creator of Dinotopia, Color and Light. It's a very interesting read. And for me, it has like tons of pictures, like tons of art in there. So it's like text with pictures and stuff. For a lot of these other books are just a lot of text. This actually has pictures, and it's like a complicated children's book. So those are some books that I would recommend you guys if you want to get into some color and color theory and better understanding of color. I'm going to also recommend, now this is, at this point, is probably even more archaic, but Mark Chiarello's book, Coloring and Lettering Comics, with he did that with Todd Klein, did the lettering part, obviously. This book talks about coloring in Photoshop and different techniques. It's very sort of light on the technique, but in fact, it may be completely outdated in terms of, putting your files together and stuff like that. I still use it. So, but then, I'm about as outdated as you can get. So anyway, and I know that Brian Miller of Hi-Fi has a book as well. I've got it around here someplace. But anyway, let's look at an example here and talk a little bit about color and so I'm reading the chat real quick here. Okay, so here we go. Oh, wait a minute! I gotta find the dumb thing. Hang on a second. Actually, let's do this real quickly before I show you this example. I was going to show you and talk a little bit about what I did. Let's take a look at this. This is the other piece of nostalgia I was talking about, and it has as much to do with color as anything else. But this is some Leyendecker imagery to kind of bring in the Christmas cheer that we're starting on this show right now. This is the official first show of Christmas. Makes me wonder if we're ever going to be back to a time in this country where we have more unity and there's this sort of this reclamation of nostalgia and getting back to what Americana really should mean and what it used to mean. When sure, Christmas has always been commercialized to a certain degree, but boy, those were good times when I was a kid, and I honestly miss them. Hopefully we'll have some grandkids sooner than later so we can kind of get some of that fun back in Christmas. But if you're not, I'm pretty sure everybody's somewhat familiar with Leyendecker, but if you're not, there's several good books on his work out there. And he was an incredible stylist, and he was just a great illustrator and painter. And so I would highly recommend digging deep into his work. I collect Saturday Evening Post covers along with many other things that of his ones that at least the ones that are my favorites. Those Christmas of Santa Claus ones are really hard to find. I've only got one of them, and there's like 3 other ones that I'm desperately searching for, but they never seem to turn up. But hopefully eventually, be patient. So you got to be, when you're a collector, man, you got to be patient. Eventually that stuff turns up. Oops. Brohawk says, want to see great color, Aaron? Check out Robert Valley. Okay. There you go. There's a name you guys can check out for great color. I hope you're right, Randy. I really do. Wow. Love Leyendecker. Picked up a New Year's baby sketch from Steve Root. Bought the 1937 original too. Holy smokes, Paul. That is taking some engineering money and putting it to good use. I would love to have, there's a couple artists. I would love to have a Doc Savage by James Bama painting. And I would love to have a Leyendecker. I mean, that would be awesome. Okay, so let's move back into the realm of coloring, at least digitally speaking. And let's take a look. I think I still have this in my file here. If not, I'll dig it up someplace. There we go. Oh. All right, so I'll scoot over to the side here. Let's talk about this a little bit. what I did with this, I colored this, obviously. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but I'm telling you, and it's true, that I did color this. So when I scanned this as a bitmap, and I tend to do overkill because I don't trust anybody or anything. Excuse me, carbonation. It's the cynicism I picked up from living in Los Angeles for 3.5 years. But so I scanned this at 1200 DPI, but I scanned it as bitmap. And I know everybody's got different techniques for scanning, and I've tried a million different things. And this is the one that works best for me. So I scanned it at 1200 DPI bitmap and then reduced it down to like 800 DPI grayscale, and then changed the file to a CMYK file and colored it in CMYK. Now, the first thing I always do is I try to figure out what my color scheme is going to be. In this case, and not just this case, but a lot of cases, I often do some type of orange-blue complementary. Okay, what does that mean? If you take a color wheel and you find orange, you'll find that blue is directly across from it on the color wheel. Okay, and those are called complementary colors because supposedly there's absolutely no blue in orange and there's no orange in blue. So they're basically independent of one another, and that's why they're called complementary colors, even though they're really completely opposite colors. But they work really good together. They will go together. But what you have to do is you have to establish one as your key color and the other as a secondary or supporting color. Okay, because if they're both the same intensity, right? If I go 100% orange, 100% blue, they're just going to be fighting each other, and it's going to be very uncomfortable looking. So you have to have one that's going to be the brighter of the two colors, and the other one's going to become a subsidiary of the other one, or subservient, of the other. So what I did was I picked out sort of a reddish orange, as you can tell by the background color if you look down here at the bottom. And I just laid a flat color of red, orangish over the entire picture, right? And then what I did was I would take my lasso, for example, and I'd lasso this horse, and since the horse was black, I know in typical comic book language, we're going to use some form of gray or blue to indicate that the horse is black, right? So I made made a mask, if you will, I with using my lasso tool, and then filled the horse with blue. Okay, the wraith, I didn't want him the exact same, even though he's 100% black as well. I didn't want it to use the same highlight color as I did on the horse, so I used more of a gray and filled him with a gray, right? And so then I did the werewolf, and I made him probably brown just so I could get a separate mask from the background. And so then what you've got left? You've got this red background back here, right? So basically you go out and you cut out the mountains and make them a different shade of orange or whatever in the foreground and whatever. So you have all those elements take out, and their own separate color, flat color, right? Filled in with flat color. And then I started working the background. So then I could use my magic wand to highlight the background, which was just this flat red orange color. And then I could start messing around with it, right? Without affecting the werewolf or the wraith or the horse or any of the other elements in the picture. And I would go ahead and I took a really dark blue, as you can tell, and pushed it over into the gray because I didn't want a pure color, and did a fade from the top, right, from the dark blue to the red. And then I lightened up at the bottom. I would do like a fade of maybe a lighter orange up into the darker red to create that kind of two-tone effect. Then I basically went in with a brush, one of the Photoshop brushes that was about as textured as I could get. I blew it up so it was humongous, right? It was almost the brush size was almost the size of the image. And then I could stamp color in there, and that's why you see some of these, kind of splotchy colors in the background. And that's just a combination of using brush and color over the top of one another, like you would lay down maybe layers of watercolor. And also I would use my lasso tool to create shapes, and I would do fades of color in them, layered over the top of one another, over the top of one another, not at 100%, maybe 50 or 40%, so that they were transparent and you could build up these layers over the top. And that's eventually how I created this kind of texture in the background. So then what I had to do was, again, if I was going to make this horse blue, I didn't want it to be this vibrant blue, obviously, because I didn't want it fighting with the red in the background. So I pushed it over into the gray. And if you look at it when you're in Photoshop and choosing your color, and you make it look like a very gray blue, it looks very gray. But then you put it against that red, that orange, its complementary color, and it pops and it looks very blue. Okay, so you start to understand that colors by themselves may look one way, but when you put them together, they look entirely different if you're mixing and matching them correctly. So that's what I did here. And you can see I put some highlights in there and different things like that in terms of technique. But what I really wanted to do here, or explain to you guys basically, was just the basic approach. And I do this all the time. I don't do a lot of interior color work because I'm very slow. But when I color all my own covers, and I always lay down one sheet. And even if I'm doing a painting, like a watercolor painting or acrylic painting or even an oil painting, you'll go ahead and paint your color, whatever your key color is for the painting. In this case, the orange red was the key color to this painting, and then everything else was subservient to that. So the brightest, the most intense color on this piece is going to be this red orange back here, and everything else is going to be duller in terms of making it a little bit more gray, so it's not a pure color, whether in this case it would be blue, so that it sits there nicely, and they don't fight each other, but they actually complement one another, thus the complementary color scheme. But that's how I approach these things. I always figure out, and I usually don't get too tricky. There's you can do split color schemes. There's tons of color schemes you can do. What I did on this, again, was just a basic complementary, right? So if you were doing, red green, usually you don't see that very often because it's very Christmassy. But red and green are opposite each other on the color wheel, and they're complementary colors, right? Yellow and purple, complementary color scheme. And you can always shift that color wheel just slightly, like I did here. I didn't want to go pure orange, pure blue, so I kind of went a little bit orange red with a blue, with maybe a little bit of violet in there. Excuse me. But again, I was working, the basis of what I was doing was just a basic complementary color scheme, because it's the easiest for me to wrap my brain around. And then because you can do split complementary and all sorts of weird things like that, and eventually you end up doing it because you're not just using orange, and you're not just using blue, but you're using colors close to those on either side of the color wheel. And so you get some variations on this. But this is actually, in terms of color scheme, this is a very simple color scheme, but I think a very effective one. And so I had to make sure, of course, that the red I was using in the Werewolf wasn't as dark, or pardon me, was darker than what I was using as the background red, because I didn't want it. I wanted some separation, but it's still very, it's in it's that same red. It's just a darker version of that red. It's very monochromatic in that sense, and then I'll take in some of the hotter reds down at the bottom. You'll see them, they're filtered in throughout the body of the Werewolf, but the overall color of the Werewolf is a much darker reddish brown, with some highlights, and then some, bringing in some of that hotter red just in certain portions. You see Frazetta does that a lot in his paintings, where he'll bring in background colors and stuff and work it into the figure, the main subject matter of the painting to give the background and the foreground a little more harmony. And you also find that people doing paintings, generally like Boris Vallejo, for example, will always paint his background first and then paint the subjects in the foreground second, because he wanted the feeling that the people in the foreground were overlapping the background, which they should, as opposed to painting the figures first and then trying to match the background to it. And that's kind of the technique I'm using by laying a flat color over the entire background and then working from that to get where I want to be on it. I have no. Vic, you want me to sit here and not talk? Oh my gosh. Yeah, where is Gabe? He's not walking in to help me out. So Charlie Lee, I like the other cover. Yeah, a lot of people do. I love that retro cover. It's actually my favorite one too. So Vic's coming in being a dick tonight. Way to go, Vic. At least that rhymes though. That's funny though. I can take it. That's fine. Actually, you know what I should do? I should blow Vic up. I think I will. There you go, Vic. Charlie Lee wants to know, how old was you when you started drawing and why? I started drawing comics. Well, I started drawing like when I was old enough to hold a pencil. Oops. People ask me that a lot, and it's like, I remember drawing when I was man, I'm seriously like 3 or 4 years old. It was just kind of a natural inclination. I don't know if there was a why as to why I started drawing, but I just had to, you know. I think we're all sort of drawn to certain things, whether we have natural ability in that area or just a natural inclination to be interested in doing it. So if you weren't with us last week when David Brohawk Williams and Mark Nelson was with us, you should check that stream out because we drew turkeys, and it was an amazing live stream because you had 3 different, completely different drawings. David Williams did this superhero turkey man, which was, I hate to say it out loud, but it was phenomenal. And of course, Mark Nelson did his weird monster stuff, which he always does. That was really cool as well. And this is the, I decided to go more, I'm not going to say realistic, but more the common take on a turkey. I mean, you know, and cartooned it up a little bit. And of course, poor guy's about ready to lose his head. This is the kind of the fun stuff we do. So there you go. If you didn't see this stream, although there's some annoying clicking going on in the background from Mark's phone because he doesn't have 2 cameras, so he was shooting his with his iPhone so we could see him draw, but the volume for some reason was clicking. It sounded like a dog chewing on a plastic bone or something, or someone like typing up you know, like a stenographer or something typing up the minutes of the meeting. But otherwise, it was really It was really fun. So there you have it. All right, I think was it comics that you always draw? No, I didn't discover comics really till I was like 10 or 11 years old. I was drawing animated cartoon stuff, and like for me it was the Flintstones and Popeye or Scooby Doo, whatever was on at the time. Just kind of captured my imagination, and I was always thinking of being an animator. And then I discovered comics, and I was like, it seemed like the ultimate I don't know, the ultimate way to tell stories, and you could do whatever you wanted. And, animation was always, and still is, although maybe not quite as difficult as it was in the old days when we were hand drawing everything, but I just got, probably about, like I said, probably about age 10, I just got totally enamored with comics, and that's all I drew. I mean, that is literally all I drew. And I was a big Frazetta fan, of course, and so he got me interested in trying to paint and stuff at an early age, but it took me a long time to kind of start to figure that out. So yeah, I think say from probably age 10 to age 18, that's probably pretty much all I drew was comics. It's funny, I think two of my favorite fictional characters probably would be Santa Claus and Uncle Sam. It's pretty bizarre right now, but I was totally enamored with Uncle Sam because I had seen in the old price guides, Old Street price guides, they would have these covers from these old 1940s national comics featuring Uncle Sam. They had these wonderful Reed Crandall covers. And I just thought, I don't know, maybe it's because it was so well drawn that became like my favorite Golden Age character for the longest time. And of course, all the Hayden Sunbloom Santa Claus ads, Coca-Cola ads, were just wonderful. And but to me, it was always, any character that I fell in love with, it always had to be well drawn. And that's sort of what always sort of attracted me to the whole idea. Yeah, well, I'm giving you a little bit of both, Lewis. You get a little coloring, you get a little drawing. I have to draw Santa though. I don't know. It's like opens up the Christmas season for me. I will be doing a little coloring on this though, so don't give up hope yet. I'm going to do a last second live stream sometime this week because I've got a page coming up from Wraith of God that I think I can show without, being like spoilers or anything. And it's really frustrating for me because I'm working on all these Wraith of God pages and I can't show you guys any of them. Like, oh, I want to show this. I'm like, yeah, I better not. Oh, I want to show this. Better not. Because I remember someone saying, I don't want to look at any Wraith of God pages. I want the whole thing to be a surprise. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But I also want to show you guys progress that's being made on the book. So it's got to pick and choose my spots, I guess. But I'm on page 22 right now. So we are moving along on a pretty good pace here. But considering it's a almost 80-page book, it's still got a ways to go. But it was weird. It was hard getting back into a regular groove after not, drawing comics regularly for several months. But it's a good feeling, though. I got to tell you that, to kind of get back into it. And of course, it's always exciting when you're working on your own stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go in, even though this is on brown paper. Now, getting back to what we were talking about earlier about the orange-blue complementary, I always tend to do my flesh tones, even if I'm painting, with kind of an orange hue to them. You don't want to go and use yellows because it's almost impossible to keep your figure from looking jaundiced if you're using too much yellow in the flesh tone, or even I stay away from it completely. So I found that oranges work much better. You don't want to go too orange, right? So you look like you got a fake suntan, but this is a very, well, it's a Crayola colored pencil, and it's just called light orange. But as you can see, it's more of a kind of a peach kind of color. We can sort of use that for a base. Now, obviously, this being on tan paper, this tan is going to show through and help, determine what the final color is going to look like. It looks really yellow on screen, but it's not. It's really more of a peachy color. I thought I'd had my color correction when I changed my internet, but I'm still having some issues here, so I don't know. I may have to get a new camera and see if I can get a better reproduction of colors for you guys to see, because this is more of a pure orange here. So I'm going to do some of my, I guess you'd call it the more shaded areas with this orange. And you can use a tissue or paper to kind of smear it, or your finger, like I'm doing. And see, then I can go in with a red. Yeah. Did you have any training as an animator? Those big, confident line strokes? No. No, I haven't. Well, I took some animation classes in college, but it really comes down to just you get more confidence the more you do stuff, right? So you're able to be a little bit more bold as you're putting down there and confident in your because you've done it so much. You kind of know. That doesn't mean that I don't make a ton of mistakes, because I do, but I have a pretty good idea what I want to do going in, so that makes it easier to be bold. Whereas if you're kind of going in, you're not really sure what you want or how you want something to look, you're going to be a little bit more cautious, shall we say, which is not, I don't think, is always a good thing. So we're using our red here to give him rosy cheeks and his rosy nose. But whenever you're doing, color work, I mean, this is just a sketch, obviously, so I'm not going to be losing sleep over, if everything's perfect. But if you're doing a painting, for example, right, for, a book or a magazine or something, cover for something, if you go in and do thumbnail color sketches, and I'll show you what I'm talking about real quickly. You can talk amongst yourselves for a second while I grab these, but I've shown these before, but I know there's always a few new people dropping in. The question is, can I find them in a timely fashion? Got some paintings I did for well, a children's book I was going to do, and I just never got done. But hope always springs eternal. All right, here we go. All right, so for those of you who've seen these before, I apologize, but for those who haven't, welcome. Okay, let's take a look at this, for example. Okay, that yellow is actually orange, so you'll have to take my word for that. But anyway, this was an acrylic painting, and what I did was I first did a tonal rendering. So this was, I did the drawing and then scanned it and printed it out on this 11 by 17 paper. Okay. And then I went in with pencil, obviously, and figured out my lighting sources and you know, how I wanted everything to look. Just grayscale, right? This is sort of like the first step in sort of figuring out your lighting and everything. Okay. And then I printed out a sheet. I don't have that with me, but I do have another one that I can show you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay, this was a dragon, right? This is the ice cream dragon. Now, what I did basically was, as you can see, I did the same thing as I did here. There were the gray tones. I did it here on this dragon piece. And then I printed it out small. I scanned it and printed it out small. So I had 6 of them on this one big sheet of watercolor paper. And then I went in and tried different coloring ideas with the dragon. I only did 3 for this one. And I figured out pretty quickly that I wanted to go with the top one. That was kind of the direction I wanted to go. I thought it looked the best. Okay, and I just did that with watercolors and some colored pencil really quickly to kind of just get an idea of my color scheme. So basically, it's almost paint by numbers. You figure all this out before you go to your finished painting, and it saves you a ton of time. I'm not guessing while I'm doing the painting. I'm just basically following this template that I've already figured out. And that's essentially what I did here. I figured out my color scheme by doing several small thumbnails, color thumbnails for this piece, and decided that I wanted to go with this. Now, again, this yellow that you're seeing here, this is really orange. It's more like a sherbet orange. So it plays off real nicely with this, you know, this dark blue I have here on this. And he's not this vibrantly blue either. This is more, he's a little bit grayer than what you're seeing here. That looks like a really hot, a vibrant blue, and it really isn't in the finished piece. In fact, I think if I show this, if I switch cameras, you guys can see this better on the computer camera. Yeah. And this all back around here, this is all acrylic. And I just used a big, thick, square brush and put it on like almost like oil paints to kind of get that textured look to it. But as you can see with where my dark blues are and everything right here, I basically followed the grayscale, you know, where I have the highlights and everything in that shoulder and how the lighting is on the chin. I basically used this gray as a template for my values on this painting. Okay, so that gets back to the question that you just asked about, you know, you got these bold, confident strokes. Well, if you figure out what you're doing, it helps you do it a lot easier on the finished piece. Sorry, man, garage door broken. I've been working with woodwork for the last 2 hours. I just saw. Well, you can come in if you want, Gabe. You're technically the guest, so. The link's on your Twitter. So if you want to come in, feel free. We can talk about Wraith of God as I'm doing this. It's another one here. I'll show this up here like this. This was the pizza troll. So I wanted his whole body to kind of be like he was made of, lumpy cheese or something. It's kind of gross, but and again, that's all acrylic and stuff. And I did the same thing with this. I did a grayscale drawing of this. So I had all of my grays already figured out, and then just used that as a template. And I did some color thumbnails. So I figured out exactly what the color scheme was that I wanted to use, and then painted it using those as my guide. So that makes it a heck of a lot easier. I know. I'd be outside the bank going, Gabe's supposed to pick me up. Where is he? That's funny. Like Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs. Yeah, kind of like that. Not quite that gross, but yeah. So, we get back to the Santa Claus drawing, which of course is nowhere near at the same scope as these paintings were. But the idea is I pretty much know what I want to do here before I get started. So it makes it easier to make those decisions. And we like to call it ruddy. I have a ruddy complexion, but only I have a pale white death complexion is what I have in real life. But depending on what sort of my light source is, my skin tone changes quite radically. So I say, yeah, so I'm just using orange and red on this guy for the most part. And then I can go real red here. And oh God, these markers almost out of juice. Typical. God, that looks really pink. Let me switch this up a little bit. Well, in fairness to me, I am drawing and not looking at the screen, Lewis, so. Paul wants to know what well, they're sitting right here. I mean, I never did anything with them. Hoping someday, yeah, like Kick's pointing out the obvious, and let me point out the obvious to you. Yeah, so I mean, I extended an invitation to Gabe, so I don't know if he doesn't come in. I can't help it. He didn't, did he? How long it was going to be on, and said he's going to get a shower. If he said that, I don't think we're going to be on that long, but who knows how long this will take. I need a booking agent, apparently, or a producer for the show. God, that looks orange. It's because it sort of is. It's Chinese red. Let's see. All my reds are like out of ink. Well, it's not the prettiest. I probably should have just stuck with colored pencil on these. My markers are going to let me down. I got into this habit of doing, I mean, Santa Claus obviously is going to have the red nose because he's supposed to, but I do this all the time and make like people's noses tips red. And I think it was Mike Perkins asked me one time, he's like, "What is all your characters drunk or something? They all got these red noses." And I was like, yeah. It's funny how we develop these sort of coloring habits, and we kind of, we all sort of, I think, attach ourselves to certain things that we like, and we keep doing them. And maybe sometimes to the detriment of the piece we're working on, because we get so caught up in, a routine or something. Yeah, I was going to use violet in his shadows, but of his eyelids, but I don't think I'm going to do that. There was a question earlier about what color Santa's eyes are, and I think they're blue, aren't they? I mean, they would be. They might be green, because if you watch the Rankin and Bass holiday specials, he had red hair when he was younger, so he probably would have had green eyes, although there's redheads with blue eyes too, so I guess he could have either. So I'm going to get some brown and do underneath his eyes here. A little bit of shadow there. I'm not going to use the David Williams Presto white gun or white pen, white gun. I'm going to use my charcoal pencil to do the white. And there's a lot of white to be done. Santa Trump with it. Oh, he's not that orange. Oh my goodness. Ethan's not that old. It's interesting how white this looks, and it's really quite tan. But this will. These pencils are awesome. I'm glad I discovered them. These it's basically called charcoal white. There you go. If you're interested in exploring this, it looks like that number on there is 558. But they're like a white chalk pencil. It's or a white charcoal pencil, I guess they call it. But it is very chalky and very opaque. It works really, really nicely. But as I've said before on these streams, this white does not lay over the top of other colored pencil. It won't do it. It works fine over the top of marker, but it won't work over the top of other colored pencil. So if I want to drop a highlight in here, it's not really going to stick. Probably because the waxy coating of the colored pencils. See, some of that colored pencil got in here, and it won't. Won't even see. I can't color over the top of that colored pencil there. I don't think I can erase that, so I may have to use David Williams Presto pen anyway. Oh, there we go. Erase that. This is almost as much white as I used on that Zemnu sketch I did for the Halloween monster sketches. I have to keep sharpening this though, because it does get dull awfully quick. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Gabe Eltaeb. There he is. Hey,
How you doing, man?
good. So let me get this straight. You contacted me and said, Aaron, we should do a show together, talk about coloring Wraith and everything. I said, hey, come on my show Sunday at 5. And you're like, yeah, that sounds good, man. And then, and then,
in my defense, the exit door on my garage, the side door to take your trash out, it broke the doorknob. I have to fix it. My house has to be secure. So I've been doing woodwork and buying doorknobs and paint, and I fix it. But I just finished about half an hour ago. And then I haven't looked at Twitter all day. And then I jumped on Twitter and I saw that you said, hey, you want to do the show? And I just saw that like half an hour ago. So I ran and showered and used the facilities, and I'm here.
all right.
So that's good. But yeah, I'm not blaming you, but I didn't hear from you. So I said, oh, maybe he's busy today and I got to fix that damn door anyway. So,
well, yeah, I do kind of like, I set something up and then I don't even talk about it for a week. And then the last minute, I'm like, okay, let's go.
okay. Well, no, that's great to find out for going forward. So then I won't wonder in the future. If we mention it, then we'll stick to it. Sorry about that, man.
No, I apologize for not staying on top of it. But, Thanksgiving and everything, we were all over the place.
Right.
So.
I went and bought a Christmas tree today and fixed the door. And since it's on the Sabbath, I don't actually do comic book work, but I do some stuff around the house. So, yeah.
So, I guess I was going to say the Christmas trees, they're out in the lot. So it's like they're sitting there anyway. But I was like, getting a Christmas tree this early, it's hard to keep that thing fresh all the way from now until Christmas Day.
We pull it off. We do. You're right. It is tough. You're definitely right. But we pull it off. Every year we go like right after Thanksgiving. I love to have my house decorated. I put up my Christmas lights. I usually wait until the day after Thanksgiving to put up the lights all over my property. But I put them up 2 days before. I just couldn't wait. So, I got the rainbow lights everywhere, and I got the tree, and my wife loves decorating. And so we got it all going. She decorates for all the seasons, 4th of July, Halloween, all of it. So we always decorate the house.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm going to break mine out next weekend. I think I'm going to wait a little bit, actually in December, but.
Okay.
All right. So, Gabe, I was talking a little bit about coloring technique, and I was getting a raft of crap. They're like, where's Gabe? Where's Gabe? So,
hey, sorry, guys.
Let's get, not for you being late, but for them having me boring them with my coloring conversation, which I'm going to assume yours is going to be much more interesting. So let me ask you, you're coloring Wraith of God, for those who don't know, among other things. When you get a page, what's the first thing you look at or assess before you get going?
The first thing is a very technical thing. I just look at the level of detail. So then I look at the level of detail to tell myself, okay, how much time am I going to have to budget for this? And then you start working backwards from there. Like, because what I learned right away as a young colorist is when something is very detailed, you don't necessarily want to do detailed colors because you'll just add to it, and you're going to end up making everything look like wallpaper. You know what I mean? If you put too much detail on a mega detailed drawing, you're going to break the composition. And for those of you in the audience that don't know, composition are the big shapes. Like if you squint from a distance, your friend is 3 blocks away. You can't see his nose or anything, but you can see it's your friend because you see his head and his shoulders and kind of his body language. So you know which one's your big friend, which one's your little friend. So we need to make sure that this stuff is readable in the simplest terms, because that's how your brain is picking up on what everything is that pattern recognition. So I know my job as a colorist is clarity. So I need to assess the inks and see technically how busy is this. And then what I want to start thinking about is the mood of the page. So we know how detailed or not detailed to go, but then what color choices are we going to make? Is this scary? Is this tense? Is it romantic? Is it mysterious? And we have cultural associations with color and some natural ones too. But we also want to think about mood. So, and Laura Martin, the great colorist, 20, 30 years, former Wildstormer, my favorite colorist.
Yep.
She said on her website, back when I was in college, like 20 years ago, I was reading her website, just getting tips and technique. And she said the three things that to focus on that I, to this day, I still remember is mood, depth, and focus. So what is the mood of the scene? Then we want to create three-dimensional depth, and then we want to have focus to lead the eye around the page to what's important. And for those of you that do improv comedy, like Whose Line Is It Anyway? I've done it with my daughter and all that. And the rule of improv is yes and. So whatever Aaron says, I say yes, and then I go further, but I always agree with him. So whatever Aaron draws, I agree with it and enhance it. I do not say, Aaron, I don't like your choice. I'm going to flip that lighting around. That won't work. It'll break it.
Right.
So,
okay. So you send your pages out to get flatted.
Right. I have an assistant, Jose Marie Flores. He lives in the Philippines.
Okay. So give us a brief description of what flatting is.
Flatting, I could show you real quick if I share my screen, but flatting is the separation of the shapes so that when I select different shapes in Photoshop, I can render just that. So we color the hat one color, we color the eyes one color, we color the face and the skin. Each object gets its own color, and that way the selection tool in Photoshop can ignore other shapes. So you can use like a big airbrush, but you're only affecting the thing you want.
Right.
So it's like masking, it really helps. So think about it like if any of you out there paint, there's a frisket. A frisket is a material that you can paint on the surface, or you can use painter's tape. And that way, when you airbrush or splatter, you won't get on things you don't want to get on. You know what I mean? So
right. So do you have any expectation that your flatter is going to stick anywhere near to the color scheme you want, or you just don't care? You're just like, dude, get these things.
No, and I don't think they could, because if they could, they'd be doing my job. Because if they knew the colors, the correct choices, then they would be the colorist and not just the flatter. So I have to address something in the chat. People are saying I look high. I was rubbing. I don't smoke or drink or anything. My only vices are eating sweets. I don't even have a sweet tooth. I guess eating carbs. I like meat and potatoes kind of things. But I don't drink or smoke. And whatever. If you drink, I don't care. But people are saying I look high. I was probably just rubbing my eyes in the shower. So
that's right. There you go. Maybe got a little soap in there.
I'm high on life. High on life.
Okay, exactly. Okay, let me bring up a Wraith of God page that we have.
You want to share my screen? I could show it step by step.
Don't show stuff that like something from the first like 5 pages that we've already shown.
This is page 1 that's already on the Indiegogo. I could show that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. Let's take a look.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've shown the first 5, right? But I'll only show page 1 right now, so we don't spoil. Oh, I need to share my screen.
Yeah, you need to share screen.
I'm not high. I promise.
Can't open it if you don't share it with me.
I'm not a carpenter. I've been doing woodwork and fixing a door for like 3 hours. Okay. So you want me to narrate here? Or do you want to ask questions?
Well, no, go ahead and discuss what your approach here, and then I'll jump in if I need clarify anything.
Okay. So I'll receive this from Aaron, and I'll look at it and go, okay, this looks like so many hour page to me. And okay, I see what's going on here, what's going on there, and I start assessing what I think I might do. And I'll make sure it's cleaned up and the file size is reduced, so that way I can send it to my flatter. I have a Dropbox online account, so I drop the files into there, and my flatter has access to that folder too. And I'll just email him, hey, Jose, Wraith of God 1 through 5 are online, and he'll say thank you. And within 24 hours, they'll all be back to me. So I'll have this, and then the flatter will send me. This is what he'll send me. Hold on. He'll send me this. You see how it's just like crazy colors?
Yeah, right.
He'll send me like just random colors like that. And then I'll fill them in with the correct colors. And the entire point of that, let's zoom in here, is if I want to render this eyeball, let's get the magic wand tool in Photoshop. When I select it now, is that showing up? You see how that's there?
Yep.
And let me grab like a paintbrush really quick. Sorry. So if I want to color this eye, do you see the cursor moving? Even though I move it up on the hat and all that, you see how it only affects the eye. And then if I want to affect his face and not the eye, now I can do that. And that's what the flats are for. That's what they do. They make it so I can select. So it'll start off, let's go backwards. It'll start off like that, and then I'll put these colors in. You know what I mean? So that's what we call local color, basically. Local color is like an apple is red, a school bus is yellow, and you don't want to use local color in your final product. That's how you get that horrible, like, amateur Crayola look that so many, like, amateur comics. You guys all know what I'm talking about. The sky is like blue and the school bus is yellow, and everything is competing in value like crazy. Value in color is lightness and darkness. Right. And that's another trick I use. Watch this. So in Photoshop, I'll add an adjustment layer on top of the entire document. I'll desaturate the entire layer, and I can toggle that off and on as I work to make sure the light and dark is registering correctly, because the human eye sees difference most easily with light and dark, not with color. You can have a green and a red, and when you make them black and white, they become the same gray. And your brain knows that in the subconscious, the amygdala, whatever. You don't know it consciously, but your brain does notice that, and the differences aren't going to be correct, even if they're opposite colors like green and red. If they're the same gray, that's going to be troublesome. So as I work and I'm establishing values, I'm making sure, yes, the image looks great in color, but I'm making sure it looks correct in gray.
Right.
Like,
that's really smart.
Yeah. So when we get into stuff like these horses, they're in the foreground, they're dark, they're in shadow. So I need to know how far to push these highlights to at least let the reader see the horses. But I don't want them to compete with the fire in the background too much, because that'll break the storytelling. Because the focus of this panel is the fire back there. We get the horses are jostling around a little bit, but that's like background action. Right. You know, even though it's in the foreground, it's background mentally.
Well, they're essentially framing devices for this, what's going on in the background.
Sure. Yeah. And you see how I use the value of that campfire back there to draw you in. But I made sure the horse in the foreground, his face was a little bit light, so you would at least take a glance at it. And I don't know if you did this intentionally, Aaron, but that horse's face is going in a diagonal left to right. Is that you did that for storytelling to move the eye across the page?
Yeah, and I think a lot of times what you find that's very interesting is you do stuff instinctively that you didn't necessarily, because it looks right, you know, without necessarily plotting everything out.
Right.
You find a lot of times you know what, I did this right because instinctively it felt right. And that's what I tell people when they're doing storytelling is that, yeah, you should think about it, but it also should come naturally. You should be able to look at something and say, that's uncomfortable, that doesn't work. And this is comfortable and that works. And it's usually because you're doing it the right way that it's comfortable. And when it's not, it's because you're going against the grain. And so that was a intuitive move.
Sure. That's 30 years of drawing comics.
Right. Exactly.
So we're looking at this bad ombre here, right? And you notice I put the most contrast, that's the difference between light and dark, on his nose, cheeks, eyes, and mouth, because I want you to look there. What I could have done, I'll try and do it with a mouse. It's a little tricky. What I could have done, make sure I'm in the right layer, I could have put massive detail up here on the top of his head and all that. And do you see, if I put highlights on the hat and all kinds of bright stuff, you'd look up there, and you're not supposed to, you know what I mean? So that's the focus element coming in. So let me just get rid of all that stuff. Oops. Undo. So yeah, so I'm always going to make sure that I detail. And you know who's my favorite high Renaissance painter is Rembrandt van Rijn. Rembrandt, I guess. I don't know why I'm adding the extra. That's my student loan talking when I say Rembrandt van Rijn. But what I loved about him is he did so much amazing detail in the face. And I'm a face guy. What I'm in love with as an artist is drawing really handsome, strong men and gorgeous women. I love the eyes and the lips and all that in women. And some people care about the face a ton. Some people don't. I care about it a ton. And I loved how Rembrandt would really detail his faces. And then there'd be all this, you want another college word? Sfumato going on the body and all that. It's kind of ethereal and smoky. And, I could break out tenebrism if you want, or juxtaposition. You know, so I do have a degree from a real university.
Yeah, I know those art history classes and art theory. And
did you go to college for art, or did you just start?
No, I went for film, but I was always taking art classes as electives while I was doing other things, you know. So I had a fair amount of formal art education, but it was never my focus while I was in school, which is very odd.
Did you want to be a filmmaker?
I did. I went to film school at USC, but
What?
I
Wow.
yeah, but I was an artist before I went to film school, and then ended up being an artist after I went to film school. So I was just I got sidetracked, and uh, Hollywood is a tough place, and
Sure.
I figured that out very quickly, and was kind of like, you know what, maybe I should go back and pursue comic art again.
Yeah,
So
well, I mean, comic books are movie storyboards. They're basically movies. And
yeah.
here's the upside for you. If you'd been a movie director or whatever, how many movies would you made by now versus how many comic books can you still make and have already made?
Well, my roommate's a director, and he's done 3 films, and
There you go.
he's a couple years younger than me, and that's it. So, yeah,
Right.
it's tough sledding. If you don't hit it big, it's tough sledding.
So imagine all your Wraith of God, and I'm sure you have you have Garbage Man, and you have a million other stories. You're going to get to tell them with Comicsgate.
That's true.
Whereas if you were a movie director, you're going to make 10% of what you dreamed of. That's got to be tough.
Yeah, I would
So,
think so. Yeah.
yeah,
I bailed early and got into art and said, I don't think this is the right
yeah.
choice, and got into art. So, which has proved to be up and down as well. So, so how, I mean, this is the thing that I always marvel at, colorists, and especially good colorists, when you do a good job, but how quickly you're able to do this. Because the mechanical process of just working in Photoshop or some of these other coloring programs for me is very arduous. It's a very slow process for me. And maybe it's because I don't do it enough to really
Uh-huh.
get rolling. But how quickly, once you get a flatted page back, how quickly can you color a page, generally speaking?
If I don't mess around, you work at home, so you talk to your wife, you lift weights, you have
Right.
lunch, you watch a YouTube video. If I don't mess around, I can get pages done in 2 or 3 hours. If they're brutal, it's going to be 4 hours. That's a slog when they're like 4 hours, but that's about average. I mean, you could do 4 a day. It's not fun to do 4 a day. You feel really just mentally fried if you do that
Right.
many. And when I was at DC, I was doing 4 a day, 4 a day, 4 a day, because I could, and I could make a lot of money, and they would hire me for everything because they knew I was fast. But it was miserable to do that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assume it gets to a point where you're like, yeah, I could pencil 2 pages a day. I don't want to, but I
right.
could, and it's, um, and they do abuse you a little bit if they know they can count on you to meet deadlines and stuff. And especially, you were on contract, weren't you, at DC?
I mean, they're vouchers, right? You sign up like, oh, I'm going to do the next 6 issues of Legion. I'm going to do the next 6 issues of whatever. Is that a contract? I guess. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
but you weren't on a contract. They were just keeping you busy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They kept me as busy as I wanted to be. Then they got too woke, and I had to leave, as everybody knows.
Yep.
I made quite an exit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. This is funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a physics teacher at a
Uh-huh.
high school here. I've been friends with him since junior high, and we were just talking, and he goes, "Hey, I saw some guy on Newsmax that was a DC artist or something that
Well,
got
that's
pissed off
funny.
at DC." And I'm like, so there's like physics teachers at Catholic high schools in Beaverton, Oregon, that are aware of
Right.
who you are, Gabe.
Right. I mean, it's amazing how that story went around the world. I was in shock the first like 30 hours when that happened. Like, it's in the Spanish, like Spain. It's on the London Daily Mail website. It went global. My aunt, she's an immigrant from Libya. My dad's sister. She lives in Philadelphia, and I forgot to tell my dad about all this because I told him I was thinking of quitting and stuff. And I was stayed at my dad's house for 3 weeks in September. He lives in Colorado, and I just wanted to visit him. And I told him, Dad, they're going crazy. I don't want to work there. And he said, don't quit. Finish your contract, then quit. And then I never told him I quit. I never told him. And then he said, your aunt saw you on the news, and she said you were really mad at Superman or something.
You're so pissed at Superman.
It's so funny because like some of the SJWs like, you didn't quit, you got fired. I'm like, that's important to them for some reason.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I resigned. I told them I said I want to honor what my dad said because he's my dad. I want to listen to him. I told them I'll finish the stuff for you guys, even though I don't want to do it. I'll do a good job like I always do. And they said, no, we don't want you to blah, blah, blah. And then they paid me. So it was like, I said, I'll do the work and you can pay me. And they're like, no, we're going to pay you and you're not going to do the work. And I'm like, okay. Okay.
Can I get a contract like that you just keep paying me?
Right.
Not
Like,
doing
so
work?
you want to pay me for a bunch of stuff I'm not going to do. So that was cool, I guess. So, yeah, I had a real nice 25th wedding anniversary. So that went
Well,
well.
that's good.
Yeah. I told my wife, DC's buying you some really nice stuff for our wedding anniversary. So, but I wish them well. You know, if I sat down right now with Jim Lee or any of those people that were, I don't know if they're mad at me or whatever, maybe they don't give a crap. I wouldn't be rude or weird. I do very well with confrontation for some reason. I can sit in the most awkward situations and it just doesn't bother me. I don't know why.
I'm
Like I had
the
dinner
opposite.
with my brother's ex-wife and her new husband so I could see my nieces and nephews. On the way back from my honeymoon, my anniversary, we stopped in Texas because that's where my nieces and I haven't seen them in 4 years. I just hugged my brother's ex-wife and shake hands with the guy, the new husband. And by the end of seeing them for a few hours, the husband's texting me like memes and telling me what restaurant we should go to, and I'm like, I don't know. Confrontation is fine with me. It doesn't bother me. So
Well, that's good. That's good because we're certainly getting a lot of it these days. But
yeah.
Micro wants to know if there's any of my roommate's films were any good. Well, okay, he made his most recent film was Greyhound with Tom Hanks,
Oh,
which
cool.
didn't make it into the theaters, but was actually pretty good.
Is that the submarine one?
Yeah.
That my father-in-law, Wiley Jones, yeah, U.S. Navy veteran, he loves that. And I was over at his house and we watched it together. And we enjoyed the heck out of that thing. So tell your friend that we absolutely love that. I have to tell Wiley. He's going to be so excited. My father-in-law.
I will. And he made doggone it, the film with Robert Duvall where he's like an old hermit and he fakes his own death, and Bill Murray's the Undertaker that helps him.
I don't know that one.
Oh, it was a couple of years ago or several years ago now. It's not Down Under. It was I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, it was so he's only done a couple of films, and he had the opportunity to do some films. There's some Michael Bay jokes going around on the message board, and he actually had an opportunity to do, I believe it was Glory Road, which was
cool
Michael Bay film about Clem Haskins, who is the coach at what was it called? It's now what university in Texas? They're the first one to have all 5 blacks starting lineup, and he got offered that.
It's not Baylor, is it?
No, it wasn't Baylor. It was I'll think of it.
We could go through all of them if you want.
It's old age, man. I'm telling you. But he got offered that job, but he said he didn't want to do a Michael Bay film because you do a Michael Bay film, it's like it's his film. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're just sort of the puppet pulling the strings, and he just didn't want that to be the case. So he's only done a couple of films, which is, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's Aaron Schneider. So we were the two Aarons. Yeah, Get Low. Thank you very much. Get Low was the movie with Duvall. And Two Soldiers he based that on a Hemingway short story, and he won an Academy Award for Best Short.
Well, there you go.
It was so funny because, he doesn't, I just get random emails from him. Mm-hmm. I should actually have him on this show, but I get random emails from him just at the weirdest times. He'll like drive by our old apartment and send me a video of it with no commentary, just that, And so I talked to him randomly, and we were still living in Florida. I was working at CrossGen. We were watching the Academy Awards, and they mentioned they said his name, and he goes up on stage and collects an Oscar. And I'm like, I didn't even know he was nominated. I'm like, what the heck? So I'm emailing him with, thanks for telling me you were nominated, you dummy. But so anyway, yeah, but I mean, that's a perfect example. The guy is a couple of years younger than me, and he's directed 3 films,
Right.
And we graduated back in 88 or 89. And he was a director of photography for years before he got into directing. But I mean, it's hard. It's a hard road. And, I guess I've always looked at sort of comics as a mini Hollywood, you know? You got the
Right.
same sort of politics and everything going on. You still have to kiss the right rings to get where you want to get. It's just on a much smaller scale.
Right.
Certainly money-wise, it's much smaller scale. But anyway, so you I've sent you up to page, I want to say 15.
Let me check.
I have
tell you what I
21.
have.
I have up to 21. I'm so lazy because
I have up to 15. Yeah.
okay, yeah. Because I hate cleaning up my artwork after I ink it.
It's so mechanical and boring. You're so
I
right.
know. And so that's why I'm just like, oh, I gotta get these pages over to Gabe. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, I'll do it tomorrow.
You know what I
I'll
wish
do it tomorrow.
to go along with your theme there of the boring stuff. You know what I wish there was a solution to, and no one has it, because I asked Sandra Hope, Jonathan Glapion, I asked a few of the great inkers that I know. You ink the page, you let it dry, and then you go back and erase, and it lightens stuff, and it gets rid of those tiny little hair width details.
Mhm.
It's like, is there a way to not lift up that ink? Is there a special eraser I could buy, a special ink I could buy? And all of them said, nope, you just got to go back and re-ink it and fix it up. So
I know
hate
that's
that.
the thing that pisses me off.
Yeah.
You sit there and you erase it and you go, okay, now everything's gray. So you go back and punch up where it needs to be punched up. And you're like, okay, now I'm re-inking something I already inked. And
Right.
just
You know what I
ticks me
did?
off.
You know what I did out of pure sense of wanting to be efficient? I started drawing in blue pencil. That way I
Yeah.
don't erase.
Well,
You
see,
know?
yeah, you know what? But I used to draw in blue pencil, then I would draw over the top of it in pencil.
I saw Arthur Adams do that. Let me grab I want to show them what I have here that are really good. I don't know what you have, but I have this Pilot Color Eno. It's from Japan.
Now, what is
It's
that a
my
pen?
green. It's a pencil. My green screen's eating it.
Okay.
But it's a Pilot mechanical pencil, and I have these 0.7 millimeter colored blue leads here. Can you see that?
Yep.
This is fantastic, and it's nice. And I'm making myself disappear. I'll turn off my freaking green screen. Yeah, I confused the picture. I'll turn off.
You're tripping me up.
Okay, so now we have that. So now we have a gray screen for some reason.
That's right.
Okay, but yeah, this is a Pilot Color Eno. If anyone wants to give it a try, you can get them on Amazon. And then I use this from Sakura. It's a sumo grip, and it's a new polymer, this eraser, and it's like micro like molecules, and you can really erase and dig into your pencil lines, and it won't eat up your paper. They came around San Diego Comic-Con like 2-3 years ago. Sakura always comes around and gives away free micron pens and free markers, and they gave me this sumo. You can buy it on Amazon too. I buy a lot of my stuff on Amazon, and these work really well. They're not expensive, so that's what I'm using to draw. And then I'm inking myself with microns and all that. So
yeah. Well, I always used I've used for years the Kohl Erase a light blue.
Okay.
And but see, this is the first time I've inked an interior story for, probably maybe 10 years. And so I would always blue line my layouts, and then I would pencil over the top of them for the inker, so you'd have tight pencils.
Right.
And I mean, you're right. I'm being really dumb. I should be just doing this whole thing in blue.
If you're the one inking, what
and
you
then just ink it. Yeah, what am I thinking?
One thing I ran into with blue, though, is I went a little too loose, and then I tried to ink from like 25% pencils, and it didn't work because I was having to think too much while I was inking.
Yeah,
but you can get razor sharp details with this thing.
Yeah.
Just set it down and kind of it goes fast. It's a little soft, but I can still get really tight details with it.
Interesting.
And Beef Law is coming. Oh my god, I'm so excited. You know my Van Damme movie comic that I'm working on?
No.
Oh, that's my independent one that I own, and I'm writing it and drawing it and all that. That is coming, and it's coming along nicely. I drew that all day yesterday, and then I don't work on Sundays because of religious reasons.
Yeah.
But and then the last hour and a half of the day, I wrote a plot for the book I'm writing that my friend Philippe is drawing. So I think I worked from the time I woke up until midnight. So
dude, you're coloring what? How many books are you coloring right now?
We're coloring your book. I'm coloring a secret book I'm not allowed to talk about.
Sure.
I'm coloring Bass Reeves. If David Williams can ever draw another page of it, Dave, I see you in the chat. I'm just I'm doing Bass Reeves, and then I'm doing this Australian guy wants to do a book, so I'm just coloring 5 pages for him. Then this guy has the license to do all of Bruce Lee's films, so I do a couple books a year for him, but I don't think we're doing anything again until after the new year. And I know I'm doing something else and I'm forgetting it. I don't know what it is.
So you're coloring all this stuff, you're drawing a book, and you're writing one at the same time.
We're going to live once, Aaron. That's it.
You
know?
sleep when you're dead, right? Is that what they say?
No, you know, you know what's funny? I'm doing all this stuff and I'm working hard and all that, but I'm taking more free time and more vacation. For the first time in my life, I'm taking Sundays off. I started taking Sundays off about 3 months ago. I used to work 7 days a week, sun
Oh,
up
yeah.
to sundown, and it was miserable. And I
Yeah.
think I was living in fear. Like, I need to say yes to every job DC offers me,
Yeah.
or else what could happen to me? And I talked to Jim Lee about it. I told him I was miserable, and they were giving me all these bad assignments. And if a book was being canceled, they'd give me the last 3 books. And we got an annual that's late, and they just have me as a fireman putting out fires. I said, Jim, I don't know what to do. And he said, the next time they give you a crappy assignment, say no. I said no once, and all of a sudden I was on Young Justice and Superman. And you know what made me laugh? I never had problems with girls and dating and all that growing up. And I realized, oh, with women I was fine, but professionally I was a nice guy.
Yeah.
And you know how nice guys finish last with women? Because they're like, I'll do your homework. I'll drive you to here. And then the girl will never date him because he's too nice.
Yep.
I did that to myself professionally.
Yep.
I was too nice.
Me too.
So,
it's like, well, see, I started off in commercial art in a commercial art studio, and my boss would tell me, he said, never say no. He goes, you never turn down a job, figure out how you're going to do it later, but always say yes. And so I sort of took that into, and that's like the wrong attitude.
That is terrible advice.
Yep. Well, it is in comics.
Yeah. And I was telling my wife I need to start saying no because I got an offer from a Silicon Valley billionaire sitting right there to do his like pro I won't say what it is because it's confidential, but it's another comic book. He wants me to illustrate the whole thing. And he's very wealthy and very serious about this. I think he could pay me quite well. Mm-hmm. And then I got a book offer to write a book, not a comic book, like an actual novel. They want me to write about how SJWs are ruining comics and this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. And that would be like a 2-3 year deal. When you write a book, it would come out in 2023. So I have so much, and there's so much more too that I can't talk about. You know some stuff, but we can't talk about it.
Sure.
But my goodness, busy. I thank God though. You know, I want to do this, and I like everything I'm doing. So. You know.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, it's like when you're working for DC or Marvel, you're lucky if you get to work on something you actually enjoy or like, you know.
Right.
And that when you're doing your stuff yourself, you make those decisions, you know, and obviously if you're working on your own project, it's going to be something that you like. So
right. Well, can I show you something I did yesterday? It's just so exciting for me. I gotta grab it. It's right next to my desk. So, Beef Law is a 1990s Van Damme Steven Seagal movie. You have 2 twin brothers. They're kickboxer martial artists. The family gets in with the loan sharks, with the Chinese and the Russian mafia. The whole thing takes place in Hong Kong. There's underground kumites, like fighting tournaments and all that. And page 2 and 3 is it's a double page spread, right? So I'm working on that yesterday. And I'm actually drawing it on a full size, 18 by 24. And it's so big, what I had to do was sketch it. I'll show you some. Let's see. So there's a guy. Punching out a guy. That's drawn in blue there, right?
Right.
But I drew that on a piece of typing paper. I'll show you my process. So here's page 2 and 3 right here, right?
Yep.
So I drew that on a piece of typing paper. Then I scanned in that thing into my iPad and drew it like tight. Then I printed it on 11 by 17 newsprint, and then I light boxed it onto the giant 18 by 24 piece in blue. And then I will pencil it tighter, and then I will freaking ink it. And then I also on my iPad, I drew this background really quick, and the fighters are superimposed over that.
Sure.
And I'm going to trace that under, but I drew it on my iPad because it has those tools to help you do perspective. It's in an old rundown warehouse. So this is just the layout of, it's kind of like Street Fighter. People are watching the fight and betting on it because it's illegal fighting and stuff. And, there's all this industrial stuff and machines. So anyway, I'm going to put that underneath this giant paper, and then that's the background. That's the background for these 2 guys fighting. So I say all that to say this. The fans of Comicsgate, since they've given us this world where we could do our own stuff, I couldn't do that really working for DC. I couldn't take that kind of time to make beautiful art like that, where I'm going to do it slowly and do it right. And okay, it takes longer, but it's going to come out so amazing. The fans gave me that. And it's that childlike, when you were 5 years old and you're like, what do I want to draw? And you just drew whatever you wanted. And it was like wonder and magic. And that's why I'll never, ever let our fans down, and never let you guys down, Aaron, any of the guys I'm working with here, because I didn't have that at DC. And, when I did a little bit of work for Marvel and all those companies, it was fun. It was a privilege, but I didn't have the freedom to be creative. I just kind of had to jump through hoops and get things done on time. Here's
Yep. That's the thing. I had a little bit of freedom with Dan DiDio because when he was there, because he brought me over and he would, give me, I did a few projects that I wrote and drew myself that I really enjoyed working on and stuff.
Mhm.
But, those are still few and far in between, as they say.
Right. Do you want to share my screen really quick?
Yeah, there we go.
That's page 1 of Beef Law. Right. So he's in a warehouse. That's Maximilian Volkov flying through the air. He's going to knock out our. It's an underground fight, and it's just a ton of martial arts. It's a ton of fun. So, but like the idea of drawing on 18 by 24 Bristol board instead of taping 2 of them together, I just went and bought giant boards. And here's some more. Right. We got this like knockout kick here, and I'm not even going to use this page. This was like an old page 5-6. I did a bunch of work on this book last year. I'm not going to use these. These are going to be pages that are going to be unused. I'm doing way better versions now, but yeah, these are giant, like 18 by 24.
Well, boards. Those are great because we did those at CrossGen. We had double spread size sheets of paper. The problem is you can't bring them with you to conventions because they're so freaking big. You don't have anything to put them in.
Right.
Awesome work on without having the split in the middle. I gotta address a couple things here. Give me a second.
Go for it. I'm going to put these papers away and I'll come right back.
Jeff Potts coming in late, really late, but he, as usual, he brings in his insult. So I'm gonna get blown up, Jeff. That's how we work around here. You know that. Aaron, do you draw in perspective grids when you work? Silly question, but you do understand 1, 2, and 3-point perspective pretty thoroughly. Yes. I have to admit that if it's a complicated piece like a downtown cityscape or something like that, I'll draw a grid. A lot of times I just fudge it and fake the perspective.
I saw.
And then I will, I'll draw in a rough background, just kind of faking the perspective, and then I'll find my 2 farthest points that are apart and find my vanishing line, and then shore up the lines. And I'm usually a lot closer than you would think. But again, that's experience doing it and training your eyes, so you know what looks right and what isn't correct.
Right. Yeah. And I think people like us that have been drawing this stuff as long as we have, you can see it. You can just eyeball it. I have these instructional DVDs by Tom Nguyen and Doug Mankey. They put out like 10, 15 years ago on how to draw and ink comics and all that. And Doug said he didn't use perspective lines, that he could just eyeball it. And he did it on the video. He drew a page on this DVD. I have it somewhere in my living room. I could go grab it. But yeah, I remember him saying he didn't put the perspective lines down. If you go on Instagram and look at Arthur Adams, he puts a million blue line perspective things down, but it comes out gorgeous.
Yeah, well, Paul Ryan, the late great Paul Ryan, used to do that. He would do these grids over the whole page, right? And then he would just freehand it, because the grids there was so many lines in there that there was barely you wouldn't be able to find an edge to a building that wasn't represented in the blue line grid someplace. Then he would just kind of freehand the buildings in using this blue line grid that was perspective grid that he put in. So it depends on the guys. I mean, I don't like picking up rulers, so I try to avoid that like the plague. And other guys are more, he came from an architectural background, so he was more used to dealing with straight edges and things like that and didn't mind it, where it just drives me nuts. I mean, I do it when I have to, but most of the time I will eyeball it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think if you're drawing a city and every line is perfectly straight, it looks dead. It looks sterile, If you can freehand those straight lines and they have a little bit of that grit quality, a little bit of wavering and stuff, it looks like real marble, real brick, real stone. It looks beautiful that way.
Yeah, that's the thing I learned the hard way, is because I would when Matt Ryan or somebody else was inking me, I would do these, I do this perspective grids and everything was perfectly ruled, and then he'd ink it and it'd look like a coloring book, right? And you're like, it had no character to it. Right. And what I'm doing with Wraith of God is I'm establishing the perspective, and drawing in the lines, but then I'm freehanding everything.
That's
So it
awesome.
has, that kind of old wood quality to it, or old bricks, or whatever, mortar, whatever is being used. And it has a completely different feel to it. And it's really apropos to the book. And it's made me question what I've been doing the last 25 years. And because I was so focused on everything being perfect, every line being perfect. And that's the best way and the quickest way to kill your art, is to just, make sure everything is perfect. It becomes this porcelain thing as opposed to this organic living and breathing image, and so I've really kind of kicked myself, because I think, oh man, if I had approached this differently, I could have had a totally different look to my work. And but yeah, never too old to learn, right?
Yeah, you're right about being so tight, and you're right about never being too old to learn. The first, I've been drawing since I don't remember, since I was like 3, but I got
Right.
serious about comic books at like 13 or 14 years old, like drawing them
Right.
all day, every day.
Yeah.
And for the first 10 years of trying to become a comic book artist, from like 14 to 24, my problem was tightness, perfection, just uptight anxiety, nervousness. Everything must be precise. Oh, I
Mhm.
can't smudge, I can't erase. And when I was in college or something, I just like let go, and I got okay with a thumbprint. I got okay with like eraser marks. And as soon as I got okay with it, it all just came to life.
Yeah.
One of the most affirming things to me is, IDW puts out those giant artist editions.
Hmm.
I have like 20 of them, but the first one I ever got was the Dave Stevens Rocketeer. And for those of you that don't know, look up Dave Stevens Rocketeer, or any Dave Stevens, Betty Page, whatever.
Hmm.
He's a master illustrator. This poor guy passed away years ago, but when you get these IDW artist editions, Scott Dunbier is the big editor there who
Right.
champions this project. They find the original art boards from collectors. They go around the country and around the world. They get the boards, and they take the highest resolution photographs of these boards. So when you get it, it has the coffee mug stain. It has the notes written in the margin.
Hmm.
You see the Scotch tape on there. When I got the Dave Stevens book, there was whiteout, there were corrections, there were mistakes, and I felt so happy. Like, oh, we all struggle to make art. It's not like Dave Stevens is a printer just making perfect, beautiful women just coming down.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
oh no, there's a thumbprint and there's coffee, and it's all BS around here. Like, good, good, good. So that was very encouraging to see.
Yeah.
So
Randy Howell wants to know, when is Gabe going to launch on IGG?
I'm going to launch on President's Day. That is when Oath of Blood, Oath of Bone will come out. That is not Beef Law, because Beef Law is going to take me a little bit longer. Oath of Blood, Oath of Bone is science fiction and martial arts. We still always stay with Jean-Claude Van Damme. My buddy Philippe Briones is illustrating. He did like a 24. We did a bunch of issues of Aquaman together, and he's an animator from Disney. He worked at Marvel. He's an older guy, and he's serious, and he's a machine. We've been working on it for like 2-3 months, and I wrote a bunch of the plot yesterday. Again, some more. We did all kinds of great character designs. But in the 2-3 months that we've been working on Oath of Blood, Oath of Bone, he's drawn 24 pages of another comic he wants to do. I won't say what it's about, but he's just drawn that in his spare time. So he's an absolute machine. So you won't
Wow.
have to worry. He told me this Oath of Blood book we're doing is a huge epic, and we want to do like 3 or 4 of them to like tell this whole story. But each individual one will have a beginning, middle, and end, because you have to satisfy the readers, of course. But he told me he wants to do like at least 3 of these a year with me. So I'm excited. And he's got, we were again putting out fires at DC. When Rebirth came out in 2016, it was me and Brad Walker were the art team, and Drew Hennessy was the inker. We were the art team for Aquaman. Unfortunately, Brad is a great guy, very nice guy, really like him. He's kind of slow. So Philippe Briones was brought in because he's a fireman like me, can put out fires. And it ended up, me and Philippe ended up doing most of the issues of Aquaman instead of me and Brad were supposed to do most of it.
Mm.
And me and Philippe, we kind of complained to each other like, they have us beating all these deadlines. Aren't you tired of this? And we made up our own comics. We made up a bunch of ideas. We actually did one called Doppel about miners in the asteroid field and mind control from aliens and all this wacky stuff in the future. Kind of like the Matrix thing where you're getting sucked into like mind control with aliens and this and that. And we illustrated it. It was pencil, ink, colors, letters, and 15. We had a preview comic at Comic-Con like 2-3 years ago. But I was at DC and he moved back to France, and we kind of didn't know what we were doing with it. So that's on the back burner for now. But yeah, I'll be launching Oath of Blood with Philippe on President's Day, because my whole brand is the American way, right? So I'm going to get the Uncle Sam top hat and the beard and everything, and we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun. I love it. So
That's
that's the
awesome.
longest answer to a simple question of the night.
Well, That's what, yeah. Is there ever? I mean, I don't. I always people ask me a simple question, it turns into a 30-minute answer. You know, like I'm never going to ask that guy again. According to Randy Howell, that's February for us Canadians.
That's
so
right.
There you go. How many pages is Oath going to be, Gabe?
The whole thing is a couple hundred. So I told Philippe maybe 60 for the first one. Don't hold me to anything. You know that thing I told you guys all earlier, how grateful I am to you, the fans, that you gave me this ability to just do what we want to do creatively. And I'm going to answer how many pages, but I got to go the long way because that's how I like to do things. Me and Philippe were like, well, what do you want to do? What do you like? You like sci-fi? You like Van Damme? You like all this stuff? And are they superheroes? Do they have powers? And we decided they have powers. And Philippe's like, well, what kind of powers? And I said to him, what do you like to draw? And when I said that, I shocked myself. I was like, wait a minute. What do you like to draw? Oh my God, we're free. We're free. What do we like to draw? What do we like to write? And we could just do whatever. And as long as we do a quality job, which of course we will, and we're having fun and we're enthusiastic, you're going to see it as the readers and the customers. You're going to feel it. You're going to see how excited we are about this stuff. So about how many pages is it? Whatever me and Philippe want to do, but it isn't going to be short because we have these Skype sessions and we're just going on and on. And I'm just taking notes and giving him ideas. And he bounces them off me and back and forth. And since he has this whole background in Disney, he really understands story really well because, I mean, they're the masters of story, right? Like fairy tales and all that. So he's always tweaking. It's my story, basically. I came up with the main premise, but it's 50-50 because he's just adding so much and taking away and saying, don't do that, do this because of that. And he has so many amazing ideas. And then he drew all these random characters. He just like, I'm going to just draw stuff I like. So I saw these characters and then I made them up. Okay, that's the main character. That's the sidekick. That's their other buddy. This is the bad guy. And this is his background. And I just wrote a bunch of background stuff based off of his drawings and our general idea of what this world is. So it's really fun. It's like I throw him the ball. He throws it back. I throw it to him and we're vibing, as the kids say.
That's a lot of fun.
Oh,
so it's going to be a series of books. It's not going to, it's not going to be all self-contained in this first campaign.
Like Star Wars. If you only saw the 1977 Star Wars, you could never see another one. You got a whole story right there. So we will give a whole story because I know there might be people who buy it who aren't interested in the next one. And I don't want people to not buy it because they think, oh, I got to buy all 4 of these or 10 of them or whatever we decide to do.
Sure.
So I will always, always, always make sure the fiction is serialized, that there's a whole story, but then we'll have subplots and cliffhangers and other things so we can keep telling the story and growing it because we have some really epic ideas. We're having a lot of fun with it. So, I'm very excited. And he's ready to draw. He's like, get me the damn plot so I can start pages. He's ready to start drawing now. So I think come February, we're going to have a bunch of it done already. So
that'll be cool. Yeah, that'll take a little bit of pressure off. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm already counting my days and my months going, okay, let's see. How many pages do I need to get done of Wraith to make sure this thing is,
When are we coming out with Wraith? When is that supposed to be published?
Well,
do you not want to say or?
No, well, it's tentatively, it says, I went back and checked on Indiegogo and it says, when you put a date in, right, you have to put a date in, right? And so it's like, what was the word they used? It wasn't like release date, but it was expected date, something like that. It was a little bit ambiguous. It's kind of like, so it gives you a little bit of stretch leeway in there, right? So supposed to be April. And I run into, with my printer that I have right now, I'm using Jostens, and they do a lot of yearbooks. So if you get too late into the spring, then you start against their yearbooks, and that going to screw up your scheduling. So I've got to hit that April sometime, get that book to the printer in April sometime. So
I'll stay right on your tail. I'll stay right on your tail coloring.
All right. Yeah. So I mean, I'm not anticipating having any sort of issue with it. But you never know. Cause I'm on, like I said, page 22 right now. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got, 66 more pages to go, and when you're penciling and inking, it's one thing to say, okay, I can ink, I can pencil 20 pages a month, but now you're saying, well, how many can you pencil and ink in a month? And, so I don't know. That probably just means longer days and the same amount of pages. But I'm doing a process where my pencils are looser than they would be if I was penciling for somebody else, right? And then doing a lot of the drawing with the pens because I want that sort of rustic, kind of looser feel to the work. And so it actually has been going by quicker than I thought it would initially. And I'm sort of getting into a groove now. So I, you know, I have full confidence at this point that it's going to be out about the time it should be out. So
Very cool. How far along on you, or do you not want to say? Or
no, I'm on page 22, right? I'm working
on
on
page
page
22.
22
Okay.
right now.
All right.
So,
Well, I only have up to 8, but I'm scheduled to do 5 more this week, and then 5 of this other book this week. So that's what I got.
well, I'll get you the other. Like I said, I've got 21 is done. I'm working on 22 right now, so I have 16 through 21, which is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. That's 5 more pages that I need to
Right.
get to you, but I got to
Okay.
clean them up and scan them. So that's why I'll.
Yeah. We got to keep in mind, people are off for Christmas like this month,
Mhm.
and then like February's short. So we got to keep in mind, we got to stay ahead of this thing.
Yeah, well, I don't take time off, so other
Right.
people may be having vacation. My son's getting married in December, so there'll be a few days there and a few days around Christmas, but that's about it. Because I remember it used to tick me off when DC started closing their doors at Christmas for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, you guys get 2 weeks off, but I have to keep drawing.
I loved that. When I was a colorist at Wildstorm, I counted it all up. Between holidays and time off, I was paid 3 months a year that I did not work, basically. 2 or 3. It was a lot. It was
Yeah,
a ton of weeks off. Because, for those of you in the audience who don't know, Hollywood is closed like for a month at the holidays. And DC Comics, we would be off of work from like the week before Christmas to a week after New Year's. You would get 2 weeks off paid every year. Like you were in high school again, getting 2 weeks off. It was
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was, but it always used to tick me off to think that my editors were, enjoying the holidays while I was grinding away. And I got to blow up Jeff Potts. Excuse me for a second. Okay.
What is I that's a famous clip, but what is Jeff Potts? Why does he want to get blown up?
Well, anybody that gives me lip in the chat usually either gets slapped in the face or gets blown up with a cannonball. So it's kind of a thing I do. What's this? Black Wraith of God on Indiegogo, sponsored by Little Debbie, Lopresti's Snack Streams.
What is your favorite Little Debbie? Which one do you like?
I have never, I'm not going to say I've never had Little Debbie, but it's not, she does like the chocolate cupcakes, right? That are filled, doesn't she?
Right. You know what I like from there? It's trash food. You shouldn't eat it. It's like a wafer with peanut butter in the layers and then coated in chocolate. I think it's a Nutty Bar or something like that. It's not good for you. You should
See,
not.
I always grab like a Hostess every once in a while. And I always get those Hostess cupcakes with the cream filling and every once in a while a Twinkie.
Okay.
I have a real issue with sugar. I got to get off it. Like
Yeah.
as I told him before you came on, I put on 3 pounds over Thanksgiving. I mean, come on, man. That you're not supposed to put on 3 pounds in like a day and a half, but I did it.
Do you have a sweet tooth? Because I don't.
Yeah, well, I have more of a chocolate sweet
Chocolate
tooth.
I love, but sweets, I'll have a bite of sweets. I'm not crazy about them.
No, it depends. I mean, it's like if there's pie. I mean, I've got an Ethan Van Sciver problem with pie, man. I love
Wait a
pie.
minute.
And I love
hold
chocolate.
on. We could have Ethan, you, and me could be a trifecta. Do you prefer cake or pie?
Oh, pie.
Pie all day, right?
It's not even close.
Pie is so good. Cake is
Yeah, I know.
It's whatever.
I'm not a big frosting guy, but boy, pie. Oh.
Hold on. I have a pie that I bought at an amazing French bakery for Thanksgiving. I still have a little bit of it left. It's my favorite flavor. It's hard to find usually. Blueberry. What's your favorite?
Oh, okay. Ultimate favorite has always been blackberry.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I made one for Thanksgiving, but I also love cherry pie. So it'd probably go blackberry, cherry, and apple, but those super close. Super close.
The Dutch apple with the crumble on top or the lattice apple? Which one?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. You really sound like an addict when you talk about pie.
Either, man. It doesn't. Yeah, and I like sometimes peach pie calls to me. It's just.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's very. In fact, have you ever had? We're going on. It's become the pie stream, but
that's fine.
Have you ever had like there's like a mince pie that's basically raisin and apple?
No.
And cinnamon. Oh,
sounds good.
It's a Christmas pie. I made one a couple years ago, and my whole family, none of them like raisins except me. So I'm just like, well, They go, "Why'd
do
you
you
make this
not like
pie?" I'm
raisins?
like, "Because I get to eat the whole thing now.
All
'Cause
right.
no one else will eat it."
Oh, someone is saying lemon meringue is the best. Would you give them the cannon, please?
Oh,
How dare you?
you know what? Yes, I will with pleasure.
How
Actually,
dare you? Your lemon meringue pie out of here.
yeah, that
Not
would
when
be
there's
like.
blueberry.
I mean, I would eat it if there was no other pie to eat, but certainly not anywhere near my top 20 pies. That's for
You know,
sure.
what my wife makes that's delicious? Shepherd's pie. You got the hamburger, the
Oh, I
peas, the
love it.
carrots,
Yep.
fill it with gravy. It's got to be soaked in with gravy, though. Don't give me
Mhm.
that dry shepherd's pie. And then the mashed
I'm
potatoes
gaining
on
weight
top.
just talking.
Oh, this is so. I've had one meal today because when I came on, I told you I was fixing this damn door in the garage.
Right.
So I had a sandwich at like noon or 1, so I'm starving. So yeah.
Well, see, this is good though. See, burn a few extra calories from everything you took in at Thanksgiving because I know you probably did not eat light. I'm just guessing.
No, I didn't, but I don't overdo it like when I was a kid. I'm 43 now, and I don't want to have heartburn for the next 5 hours, So I had a big plate, and then I had a little bit of a half plate, and I called it quits. Because in the old days it would have been 3, 4 plates, and then like comb on the couch.
Yeah, I
And
know. Like
your
can't even
throat is
move
burning.
for like
You have such
hours.
terrible heartburn. You're coughing from all
Yeah,
the burning in
yeah.
your throat. That's no way to live.
Pastmaster Dan says he makes the best cherry pie. I'd like to
Ooh.
put that to the test.
Cherry pie is amazing. Now, have
It
you
is.
ever tried? It's like a Minnesota, South Dakota thing. They put a slice of cheese on apple pie, like cheddar cheese. They do. I've never had it, but I've heard the legend.
I'd try it.
It's intriguing, right?
Yeah.
Sounds gross, but it might be good.
Well, yeah, I'm a big cheese guy too, so I could see that actually. I'd go for that, I suppose. Now, see, this is interesting.
Oh,
I'm not a big strawberry rhubarb fan. In fact, my dad would always, if he went to a pie shop, he'd bring home strawberry rhubarb because he knew he hated it and that I wouldn't eat any.
no.
And because I don't like that. I like strawberry pie, but that rhubarb in there doesn't really do it for me, man. So I'm just saying. But I
Seth,
know a lot of people like it.
yeah. Let's see. Oh, Seth Wright says CG pie eating contest. My money is on the Presti. He looks hungry.
I don't know. Ethan, I think could probably put away a lot more than I could, but you get me on the right day.
Are we talking about speed or volume? Like how
Well,
much pie could you eat?
I'm a fast eater, but I think it would be volume, wouldn't it?
Right. I think it's amount. I don't want to go fast, but I think I could eat an entire pie. I think I could. I never have. I once ate a large pizza by accident when I was young, and then I felt it. Ooh.
I've done that before.
I ordered a medium. I was home being lazy. I was like 19 years old, watching Star Trek, which I don't even like, but it was just I was doing nothing that day.
Oh, you don't
And I
like
ordered
Star
a
Trek? What?
I don't
What?
I don't hate it. It's just to me, I always had this rivalry thing in my head where if I like Pepsi, then I can't like Coke. It's kind of immature. So I love Star Wars so much. It's like Star Trek isn't Star Wars. So it's kind of a dumb idea I had as a kid, I guess.
See, I'm older than you, so I was raised on Star Trek, and so I was already an addict of Star Trek before Star
Oh.
Wars came out. So,
I'll tell you this: every episode I've ever seen of Star Trek, I've liked. It's been
well,
intriguing.
there you go.
Randy
Howell sent me a Canadian $10 bill. Thank you very much, Randy. Appreciate that. Aaron is going to have a cream pie in the face clip for next stream. You know what? I got to find that and add that to the show because we should do a whole pie stream. My gosh, we did. I did one time about a year and a half ago. I had David Williams on. We did for Pie Palooza, and he had I think it was he had peach pecan pie, which I'd never heard of.
Oh.
It sounds like something Southern, doesn't it?
Very.
But he said it was awesome. It was his favorite pie, and he's in New Mexico, so I don't know because I've never even heard of it until. But now I gotta find a piece and try it out. But I may have to go like Alabama or someplace to get it. I don't know.
Do you like pecan pie? I love it.
I do. I didn't think I would, but once I had it,
we had some when my son was younger playing Little League baseball and football. One of the teammates, the mom was from Canada, and she said a pie they eat up there all the time is called sugar pie. And imagine pecan pie, that caramel sugar that you put with no nuts. It's literally just crust and then the brown gooey caramel, and then she poured cream on it. I don't know. Any Canadians?
Sounds like a sugar coma,
right?
But it could be good. Now, key lime pie. Now, this is because I lived in Florida. Key lime pie was a big deal, and so we had key lime pie a couple of times down there, just to say we did, and it was pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't know why. I love lemon, but I don't like it in sweets. I like it with, chicken or with fish or whatever. I don't really like fish, but
So you
I
don't
like it
like
with savory.
you would eat lemon squares?
I'll eat them, they're okay. It's just I don't have a big sweet tooth, like whatever. My whole thing about needing to still lose more weight, it's the rice, it's the potatoes,
Hmm.
it's tortillas, it's the carbs. But as far as sweets go, and I know sweets are carbs too, I'm just not like if I have a little bit of sweets, like that's enough. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
No, I can OD on sugar. I have to be careful, but um,
chocolate, I can eat
I'm
way
not
too much
afraid of
of.
it though. But I do have a limit where I
Okay.
can, it's like something gets too rich, like if you're eating baklava or anything, something like that. Have you
Oh,
ever
now
had that?
baklava, that's my people.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that's
gosh,
the
but
stuff.
that is so rich. It's like I can have a small piece of that, but too
Yeah,
much of
you
it,
need like
can't
a
take it.
big cup of coffee with that or something to cut it, all that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had Thanksgiving at home or with friends or family, or what'd you end up doing?
Well, my daughter came back from college. My son is still in the area.
Okay.
And so he and his fiance came by, but they were at her parents' house earlier in the day, came by ours later. Um, my my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they moved to Texas recently, so they would usually drop by at some point. So they weren't here. So we still had a decent amount, but and my wife's father passed away,
Oh,
unfortunately,
sorry.
in the earlier in the summer. Thank you. And so, just it was much smaller than it normally would have
Okay.
been. So I got a 13-pound turkey instead of a 20-pounder, and we still have
Nice.
turkey, till next year. I'm gonna have to make a big turkey pot pie or something.
Oh, Master of Boobs wants to know if I'm Greek because I said baklava is my stuff. No, I'm Libyan though. So all the Mediterranean people, we all, there's a lot of similar crossover in the menus though.
You guys all share desserts over there.
Right. I maintain that the cultures that do the best dessert are European. You got all the French and all the German and the
Mhm.
cake and the pies, and the Middle Eastern does the baklava and all that. I think that's the best dessert in the world.
Hmm.
So I'm half Mexican, so I can criticize Mexican pastries. If you ever go to a panaderia, I think that's how you say it, a Mexican pastry shop, boo! Everything in there's terrible.
Really?
Oh, my wife wants to go to those because she's more Mexican and Native American than I am.
Mhm.
Oh, it's awful. If you've ever been to one, gross, not good. Not good. Very, very boring.
I'll avoid it like the plague, man.
Right. Please do.
Oh,
Okay.
man.
Are we making everyone hungry?
Yeah, this turned into complete pie stream, but I'm still getting a little bit of sass here, so I have to
Oh,
retaliate.
all right.
This is my other.
I
So there
like
we
it.
go.
I approve.
There you go. So, well, why don't we wrap this up, Gabe? We've talked a
Sure.
little bit about coloring. We've talked a ton about pie. Um, Let me say that those of you who have not backed Wraith of God, if there's any of you out there, the link is in the description of this video. Gabe is coloring and doing a fantastic job. I'm, of course,
Thank
writing,
you.
penciling, and inking it. And we promise it'll be a great looking book. And so you have an opportunity there to back. Just follow the link in the description. Also, I'm going to be opening up a couple of secret perks because I have some extra copies of Garbage Man trade paperback, and some people were asking about that, and also the extra Wraith of God trading cards. And I want to be able to, those of you who've already backed the campaign but came in late after I'd already closed down the Garbage Man stuff, I want you to be able to get it without the full postage, right? So just the add-on postage of like $2 for the trade. So I'll open up a secret tier and offer it to everybody that's backed, and then everybody that wants it can get it. And then if there's any left over, I'll open it up as a regular, a regular perk. But we'll see how that goes. But that'll be sometime coming up this week, and I will
Very
send
cool.
out an update to all you guys so you'll know when it's available and how to access it. So there you go.
Very cool.
Any parting shots, Gabe, you want to throw out
Um,
before we head out?
well, thanks for having me on. Sorry I was late. I had to fix that garage door. House has got to be secure.
No,
And
no, no, that's
but
totally
it was fun. We should do more just to, and if you will allow it, maybe show a little bit of preview art to the fans to like kind of help them get through the waiting. Because I know as someone who's funded or who has backed crowdfunding, the wait is kind of a hard thing sometimes. You know what I mean? So
Well, I'm trying to pick pages that don't have really spoilers on them, and I have a couple that we can once you get it. Like the picture of the town with the sheriff and the little girl, that page.
Sure.
I've shown that, so that can, once you get that colored, we can show
Okay.
that. And I've got another one I got coming up here that we'll be able to, I'm going to do a live stream on, just working on it. So try not to give away the good stuff, and just kind of
Right.
the some of the connective stuff that people won't ruin the story for them.
Right.
But
I'll check with you before I post anything. If I could just ask the fans, would it be crazy to have you guys, like this stream and share it, and then check out my channel too? I've got
Yes.
great videos. I found out what I'm really good at on YouTube. I just narrate like a life story for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then I put some nice graphics and art and movie on it, and people seem to really like these. If you go to my channel right now, the latest video I put out, I interviewed Mike Barron, but right before that, I tell a story about how I almost burnt down my dad's house on my 14th birthday playing Street Fighter 2. It's only 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So if you could subscribe to mine and check those out, I'd really appreciate it. So.
Yes, do that. He's got some good content rolling over there. He just started not too long ago, but he's got some good stuff up already. New rule: Aaron and Gabe aren't allowed to stream together after the bakeries have closed. Oh my gosh. Yeah, next time we do one of these, we're gonna have to bring in a piece of pie and eat the pie.
Okay.
As part of the show.
Yeah.
So,
I think I'm gonna have some blueberry pie tonight. I have some barbecue ribs and maybe blueberry pie for dessert.
You are ready to go, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go eat leftovers.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me, Gabe. I appreciate you making it and talking about the coloring process. I found that stuff. I always find this stuff very interesting, and I know guys in the chat do as well. And thank you for joining me. And everybody, we appreciate you. We couldn't do this if you weren't out there watching and supporting us. So we thank you for that. And we will catch up with everybody real soon, I'm sure. So everybody have a good night and a great week ahead of you. Thank you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.